All right. Cenk Uygur is here, ladies and gentlemen. It's a classic uncle nephew face off, as I have talked about already. For those of you who don't know, Cenk wrote a book. This is hit me in the face. Cenk wrote a book called "Justice is Coming: How Progressives Are Going to Take Over the Country and America is Going to Love It," which is, I mean, I'm a very cynical person. I don't think, I'm a very pessimistic person. I don't think it's happening anytime soon, but maybe you'll make an argument for that. Yeah, we're going to talk about your book, and we're going to talk about another thing that you literally didn't tell me while you were announcing it, which is that you're running for president. And of course, I'm going to ask you why or even how, but that's it. Those are some of the things that we're going to be talking about. Before we get into any of that, though, let's start off with the Democrats actually doing something that is unheard of, unimaginable, which is showing backbone and showing a spine and actually doing the right thing, even though they were like kind of forced into a corner to do the right thing on Kevin McCarthy's ouster as Speaker of the House. What do you think about it?
Yeah, look, I guess I love it. Not going to change anything. It's not going to make any difference. But I agree with you. I'm glad that the Democrats didn't gratuitously help him. So I talked to Representative Ro Khanna on Friday in D.C., and we came up with a good idea together, which is the Democrats, for whoever
that
it is,
his children should keep doing
whatever it is you were going to say. No, that's not it.
Wait, you guys didn't have the good idea of making sure that his children were participating in the stock market and having excellent returns?
No. Year
over year? That's crazy.
So came up with the idea of, well, why don't we ask for something in return? So like paid family leave. So if any Republican wants Democratic votes in the House for speakership, yeah, maybe we could do that. Give us a couple of concessions. You don't get it without concessions, right? So we give you give us the concessions of a vote on paid family leave that polls at 84%, and maybe one other vote, right? And then okay, then we can have a deal. But if you just want a deal where we needlessly give you the speakership, why in the world would anybody do that?
I think the funniest part about that is that would never happen because Kevin McCarthy would have never done that. He would have probably lied, maybe, but. What's even better about the situation is that, like I was alluding to, he didn't even like go to the conservative Democrats and offer them anything. Like literally nothing was given. And then there are still, of course, perverts, both sidist perverts in liberal media that are trying to turn this massive fuck up within the Republican Party into somehow a issue that is the Democrats' responsibility, which is awesome. It's awesome. Some dude on the Daily Beast wrote an article talking about how, like, this is actually a bad thing that the Democrats did. Once again, here it is. Matt Lewis, who is a conservative himself, said, "You can't blame Dems for the blow that right-wing bomb throwers landed on Kevin McCarthy, but what you can say is that they failed to do the right thing on behalf of the American people, which was to make sure that Kevin McCarthy remains the Speaker of the House."
Yeah. So look, I know Matt a little bit. We used to go on MSNBC together. I went on his podcast recently. He's a good guy, but generally speaking, he's from the old school of establishment, bipartisan, uniparty thought, which is the way that this would have gone in the old days. Is the Matt Gaetz character would have huffed and puffed, and McCarthy would have said, "Oh, no way," right? And then at some point, whether it was the Republicans inside their caucus or they go to the Democrats and they get a deal, the deal is what it was always going to be, which was cut spending for the average American, maybe throw in a tax cut for the rich or a deregulation or something. It's all theater. It's all fake. Now, here comes the twist. The twist in the story is that the crazy right-wing Republicans like Matt Gaetz are actually not doing theater. I mean, it looks like they're doing theater and they're doing their own theater to raise money, etc. But they're not playing the same old game. This is like, and that's part of why the media and the establishment is so mad, because they're like, wait, you guys are supposed to pretend to object, but not actually object. And we're supposed to cut spending for the average guy. That's why guys like Matt go, I don't get it, man. The Democrats are part of this play, good cop, bad cop. And the good cops are supposed to come in at the end and screw over the American people while pretending to be good guys. And so since the Democrats didn't do it and Gates didn't do it, they didn't get a deal. And so I don't think it's so bad at all. Like, number one, they weren't doing anything anyway.
Yeah.
Right? And number two, actually somebody threw a curveball into this normal, sick theater.
I like to always say, what would the Republicans do if roles were reversed? And if anybody in here thinks that they would have dove on a grenade to save the Democratic Party or the institutions to make sure that Nancy Pelosi would have retained her speakership position, you're fucking out of your mind. So yeah, Democrats did exactly what the Republicans would have done in the situation, which is, of course, always good politics. Okay? It might not yield good policy, but it was certainly good politics. Now, of course, the other side of this is that there was no opportunity for good policy anyway. People are immediately rushing to conclusions that Kevin McCarthy would have been a more moderate speaker than whatever kind of demon they put forward, certainly. But functionally, Kevin McCarthy, as the Speaker of the House, was going to operate like the most reactionary person in the party. And he did. He did do that. It's not like he gave a bone to the Democrats in his chaotic order and under his control in the House. They fucking lodged an impeachment inquiry with zero evidence that connected Hunter Biden to Joe Biden. Zero. Okay? Zero. That's insane. That's so insane. And it's not like there was no investigation leading up to this. There was. They just did it behind closed doors because they knew they had no real evidence. And then they just kept going along with it. And now they just apply this rhetorical tactic, this little trick where they say the Biden family. Have you noticed that? Where they, instead of saying Hunter Biden, they always say the Biden family, we're doing crimes, as though because technically it's not wrong. Hunter Biden is a part of the Biden family.
Yeah, it reminds me of the trick that Dick Cheney did to get us into the Iraq War. When he was asked on Meet the Press, wait, did Iraq attack us on 9/11? He said, the fighters come from the same general region as Iraq. And that means, no, they didn't attack us, and you're just making it up. You're saying, what difference does it make? They're all Arabs.
Yeah. So we talked about that. You think the Democrats have a little bit of spine? Not that it fucking matters in this situation anyway. So why do you think the progressives are going to win? What's going on in this book? You wrote a book, finally. Yeah. You've been writing it for a while.
Yeah. So, look, first I explain all the depressing stuff, so you're not going to be surprised by that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I explain why, even though progressives are 2/3 of the country, and there's no argument about that, we don't win. I explain exactly why. Money and media are the two giant factors. And I explain how we live under corporate rule and how we lost the Democratic Party, let alone the Republican Party. But then Kirkus Reviews and everybody else says it's a super hopeful book because in Chapter 6 I explain how we're going to win. And the answer is actually really easy, Haas, which is young people are super progressive. Oh. And so the polling is overwhelming. The Republican pollster Frank Luntz's his toupee's on fire.
Friend of the show, Frank Luntz.
Yeah. Noam Chomsky agrees. You look at any of the data, under 45 in 2020 voted massively progressive. Now, this time around, it'll be under 49. By the time you get to 2028, it's good night, Irene. It's under 54-year-olds, and they're done.
I think this is I think this is wrong. I will say. This is like the classic trope that time and time again, the next generation will save us trope. If, with one exception.
That's just not true.
With one exception. Okay? The material realities for the upcoming generation, my generation, is significantly more dire.
That's right.
And therefore, they will vote along the lines if they are still participating in the democratic process at that point. If they haven't fully checked out, they might end up having a much poorer country overall and having less economic prospects overall will yield understandable results and will yield the same voting patterns. I do not think that it's more so a generation being progressive, but instead a generation not having access to, additional additional economic opportunities that prior generations had, because you see it time and time again. When people have more assets, when people have more capital, they start voting in predictable patterns. They start voting for deregulation because they understand that like this is intrinsically aligned with their interests. Oh my God, Kaya is so good at opening that door now. It's crazy. I had put her outside and she literally opened the door immediately and ran in here. That's nuts.
Okay, let me break that down for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So number one, the trope is actually not.
I got close the
trope is not intergenerational. It's about demographics overall, right? So people say, "Oh, that's okay. The Democrats are going to win because they're going to get black voters, they're going to get Latino voters," and that's not at all guaranteed. So I never believed in that, and the identity politics generally doesn't work. But the idea that hey, it's okay, the next generation never saves us isn't true. And everybody always says, "Oh well, we are going to get more conservative as we get older." Well, I quote in the book meta studies that show that's not at all true. In fact, your political leanings get set between the ages of 14 and 24. Every study shows this. And is it true for everyone? No, but is it true generally? Definitely. And so one of the examples that I give, Haas, is that back in 2011, did a normal study, and they found out that people above 65 years old were the most likely to vote Republican. And generally speaking, they grew up in the older generation, that kind of Gen X, et cetera, grew up in the Reagan times. And actually, they were just as conservative when they were younger. Okay. But above 85 was super liberal. And the reason for that is because they grew up with like FDR, LBJ, JFK, some range of that, right? And those guys stayed progressive their whole lives.
I know, but there's like also at that point, how many fucking 85-year-olds exist? You know what I mean? I feel like that.
No, that's not.
That yields
it's not
a lot of.
Like right now, those guys are 97, right? That's not the
There's
issue.
like 8 of them.
No. The issue is that it's totally bullshit that people become more conservative as they get older. It's not at all true, and it's not backed up by the data. And this generation,
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that the only thing that I would agree with on that data point is that it is totally, entirely pegged to their economic circumstances.
And the economic circumstances of the younger generation is very, very unfortunately are fucked.
Yeah, no. That's why I'm saying like that is ostensibly the only reason that I think the younger generations, as they get older and are devoid of the same opportunities that prior older generations had, because like a lot of the current wealth that we have in this country is trapped in like baby boomers and Gen Xers. Like they are like the last remaining generation with access to any kind of assets, homes, things of that nature. You're coming to a situation where you have like permanent renters that will never be able to purchase a home.
So part of the reason
that changes their dynamic, that changes their
100%.
Political perspective.
And this is all going towards exactly my point, which is, look, part of the reason that the younger generations, are both millennials and Gen Z, are so progressive is cultural factors, right? But the other reason is economic factors that nobody ever talks about. They have no chance of buying a home for the great majority of those generations, right? Everything for them is much harder. Student debt is infinitely higher. They're much more tied to corporate rule and have become chattel in a lot of ways. And they're rebelling against that. Besides which, this isn't arguable. They would have to change the dynamic of those generations massively over the next 1 to 5 years for the Republicans to be able to win, right? So, because in the 2020 elections, even the states within the Democratic Party that Bernie lost, he would win under 45-year-olds with 40, 50-point margins, even after the race was largely over. So, like, the handwriting's on the wall. And by the way, what saved the Democrats in the 2022 midterms? Younger voters. What saved Joe Biden in 2020? 11% more younger voters showed up. That's the only reason he won. And so this is all trending, not just towards Democrats.
Not just younger people, I think.
But towards progressives.
I don't think it's just younger people. I think it's also it was white people in general. Like there are more white people now voting for Joe Biden than they did before with Hillary Clinton.
Look, there's a lot of different demographics.
That's a huge demographic shift.
I know, but those things shift. They go back and forth, and now all of a sudden Trump's up to 42% with Latinos. He's up to 20% with African Americans. So I'm not relying on that 1%. But I have not seen anything that challenges the numbers.
I don't think the 20% number is real, but you know.
Yeah, no, it might be an outlier. It might not be exactly right. But the bottom line is, I've never seen a compelling case for demographics saving the Democrats or progressives other than age. And age is the biggest demographic and the biggest difference maker. And so there's other factors too, changing media.
So how are you going to activate younger voters to go out and vote? Because out of the voter eligible population, younger voters are poorer on average, and poorer equals less likely to vote in general. Poorer equals less time off from work, a job that you're most likely trapped in the service sector. How are you going to get young people to go out and vote? This conundrum is the reason why a problem that even Bernie Sanders was unable to solve is the reason why he didn't win in the primaries. That was a big part of the problem.
So I hear you. Those are generally problems, but it's not that Bernie Sanders didn't solve it. So first of all, Bernie Sanders won the first 3 states, as we all know, right? And what happened then is mainstream media activated the older voters to vote in droves against Bernie, right? So normally after you win the first state, let alone the first 3 states, you get a significant amount of positive coverage, and I have the numbers and the data in the book. But of course, Bernie got like 3 times the negative coverage.
Okay. We're saying the same thing. Right. You're just saying
no. But my point is, at that point, even with mainstream media just blasting Bernie, talking about executions in Central Park and giving Biden enormous positive coverage, etc., Obama rallying everyone, Buttigieg, etc., etc. Still, if it was 4 years later, Biden would have lost to Bernie because of the age demographics. Just couldn't do it with 45-year-old and under enough. Like if it was like 49-year-olds and under, Bernie almost certainly would have won. So, and here we are 4 years later. So, look, is it written in stone? Of course not. But is it as dire as people think? Not even close. I think we're definitely the favorites, not the underdogs. And Haas, here's another giant factor: media. So we all know mainstream media hates progressives and destroys us at every turn, right? And so they activate the older voters, etc. But now they're losing their power. But here's a really important fact that people don't absorb enough. Now, for most of the television networks, their costs are higher than their revenue. Are they really going to be able to last 5 more years of bleeding out? So at some point, this doesn't just wither away, it capsizes, right? Meanwhile, what's happened? TYT's happened, you've happened, tons of like new streamers progress, and almost all of them are progressive, right? So we've got some right-wingers trying their best, spreading sexism, bigotry, racism.
I think right-wing media is significantly more popular. I wouldn't say that like they're popular because they have more like genuine grassroots support, but they're popular in for the same exact material reasons as to why CNN cuts corporate propaganda, MSNBC cuts corporate propaganda, and Fox News is the most popular news broadcast. They have moneyed interests backing them, whereas like real progressive content has to revolve around, or if they want to be sustainable, heavily rely on like subscriptions, and that is incredibly difficult. There's nothing as good as just like having unlimited wads of money from concentrated wealth that will give you a couple billion here, a couple billion there, and that is precisely the reason why Daily Wire is fucking taking our lunch money all day, every fucking day. Think about it this way: the Steven Crowder $50 million conversation. I would say, not to toot my own horn here, but probably more popular a figure overall than Steven Crowder. There is no $50 million deal coming my way. That is unimaginable. That would never happen in a million years, because Steven Crowder doesn't have to generate $50 million in revenue. He just has to keep saying the right things, and billionaire-backed independent media that is basically cutting the same exact propaganda that Fox News cuts will keep funneling money to those places.
So I understand our disadvantages very well because I'm in this business, right? But look, even with all of our disadvantages, TYT gets about 5 billion views a year. So Daily Wire can kiss my ass. All the right-wingers combined can kiss my ass. And so the good news is I'm not just a good host. We have a lot of great hosts on TYT. I'm a really good businessman. And so I have maintained us in business for 21 years in an impossible industry. We built a network of progressives, and we just keep on winning. So they're not going to be able to get rid of us. We're going to win, and then when we get more resources, we're going to dominate even more. So the problem, the advantage that the right wing has is infinite money, and the left has almost no money at all, right? But the disadvantage that the right wing has is that they're not popular. We say things that are popular, and people like what we're saying because it's in favor of them, right? The right wing has garbage that says, oh, rich people are great. You should give all of your money to rich people. This show brought to you by rich people. That shit's never going to be ultimately that popular. And part of the reason why
but that's why they always move around and try to latch on to focus tested talking points on deeply and undesirably unpopular policy positions that they have. That's why nobody says we want to criminalize abortion and like lock women up that have a pregnancy and want to exercise their bodily autonomy. They say we're pro-life. Life begins at conception. And when there is an anti-Catholic, anti-Christian slant in the United States of America, which there is, then they change the conversation around from even someone like Ben Shapiro, who is very religious, like he doesn't hide that. They change the narrative around from, instead of talking about like how life begins at conception is a Christian talking point and therefore you have to abide by it because America is a Christian nation, they move towards how this is actually a moral argument. This is the scientific argument. Like this kind of paradigm shift, this kind of like propagandizing and the mechanism that backs it is all too powerful because, once again, it goes back to concentration of wealth. So it doesn't really matter. Like Daily Wire is more successful than both of us combined. I'm sorry. That is just the reality.
No, not in terms of views. In terms of money,
I
don't
have
more money.
So. I think that they are very
You think they
successful.
get more than 5 billion views a year?
I don't know what metrics you're working with when you say 5 billion views a year. I don't know if you're just simply talking about YouTube.
Facebook,
Yeah,
Roku,
you're talking about
Pluto,
YouTube, Facebook,
Snap, you name it.
That's great. If Daily Wire is on all of those platforms with the exception of Snap, I think, probably. I would assume that they're not on Snapchat. And yes, they probably get significantly more. I don't have like access to their media deck, but their Facebook numbers blow everyone else's out of the water. Time and time again, every single Daily Wire content creator is absolutely at the top of the leaderboard in terms of impressions, in terms of readers, in terms of everything.
So Haas, let me give you my perspective and context on it. So since I'm like a generation older than you, I grew up completely on mainstream media where we didn't have any options at all. And I write about that a little bit in chapter 5. And that turned everybody Republican. And the reason for that was that they would tell you like Ronald Reagan is the Gipper and he's a cowboy and he's awesome and America's a shining city on a hill and that's what Republicans stand for. And Democrats are weak losers like Michael Dukakis looking funny in a tank. And they all did it 24/7. There was no other option, just corporate media. And so I think conservative voters have some redeeming values. We could talk about that if you want. All Republican politicians and all Republican media figures are liars, okay? They have to lie because they can't say, hey, I want you to take all your money and give it to the rich. That's their actual objective, and they can't ever say that. And then you can say it about 100 different things. They can't say, hey, I want you to smoke cigarettes and get cancer. because they pay me. Hey, I want you to take guns and shoot yourselves because the gun manufacturers pay me. I want you to destroy the planet because ExxonMobil pays me. They're never going to say any of that. So it's one lie after another, and we call them talking points. But these days, even if you were right and Daily Wire is slightly larger than TYT or TYT slightly larger than Daily Wire, it doesn't matter, because what matters is that they can't stop us, you, and 1,000 other streamers out there. And we're going to get the message out. And so, like, now some of their old talking points sound so dumb and asinine. And so when they try their things about, like, oh, trickle-down economics. When I was growing up, the media actually brainwashed people into thinking trickle-down economics was real.
Yeah, same. Okay.
And now we've destroyed that. Anyone who says trickle-down economics is considered a total joke.
We didn't destroy that. I don't think that we destroy that. I think, like, objective reality and the lack of that promise destroyed it significally more than
objective reality was always against it, Haas. It wasn't even close.
I know, but people started people after 30, 40 years of neoliberal austerity recognize now that, like, that is complete bullshit. Now it doesn't matter because people still do the same thing. They move as soon as the established narrative, the norms that people recognize are at odds with whatever the media is saying, or are at odds with what, like, right-wing moneyed interests are trying to pump, then ultimately they move on to the next thing. I am in agreement with what you're saying, but, like, ultimately, you know, the market collapse in 2008 probably did significantly more for people to understand that, like, trickle-down economics was bullshit from the jump than anything else. Like, that played a major role in people losing confidence in, like, a lot of economists and what they were saying, which they should lose confidence in, because these guys are they're spreading poison.
Here, let me give you one example of the power of an alternate voice. So, and this is a very ironic example. So, Iraq war was always bullshit. It was always obvious. Mainstream media didn't say it. They said, oh, yeah, weapons of mass destruction. And they attacked from the general same region as Iraq, etc. Right? So, okay, 70% of Americans, when we attacked Iraq, thought that Saddam Hussein had personally attacked us on 9/11, right? So they mass lied, mass hypnosis, etc. So no matter how much we were right, we couldn't break through. And then that lasts for forever, until Donald Trump goes, Iraq war was bullshit. And all of a sudden the dam breaks. And then the Republicans go, oh, yeah.
No, I disagree with that as well.
No.
I think
before
you and
that,
I
if not a single Republican said the Iraq war was bullshit.
You and I,
until
it
Trump
doesn't matter
said
what Republicans say. You and I are at fundamental odds and will forever be at fundamental odds in the way that we analyze the world, because I am a believer that the material conditions and things withering away, like larger structural moves in either direction, are significantly more important in bludgeoning people with reality than the media moving in a specific direction. I'm also a believer that, like, under an inherently oppressive construct, yes, you can inevitably shift the attitude in the more reactionary on the more reactionary side of things. And unfortunately, the only way to stop that is by waiting it out and just eating the pain. I don't think that the media can get together. Like, let's say if tomorrow MSNBC, CNN, and mainstream media were no longer owned by the same corporate entities, and we're actually doing objective journalism across the board, and not whenever, like, it is, like, anti-Trump, which drives clicks or whatever, and it's permissible, right? I don't think that would cause a genuine sea change in the way that I think you believe that.
Yeah, I think a progressive would be president the next day. Okay.
I think that they would play a very significant role in changing people's attitudes, but the reality is that could never happen in our current structure regardless. There would be need for a world where the material realities were different.
But
like,
the material realities are different. So we've got every single thing lining up for us. Younger voters, the destruction of mainstream media, rise of new media, but also objective reality. So, for example, why did FDR do incredibly progressive things? Why did LBJ, at least on social issues, do incredibly progressive things? Because
the economic realities, one, demanded it, and two, there was more pushback from outside groups at the time. There was more militant labor, and people were recognizing the writing on the wall about America's dire economic circumstance.
It's exactly right. And what's the situation we're in now? Almost exactly the same thing. Now we need to build a labor movement. We need to build more direct action.
I agree. That's why I do what I do. I think a lot of people don't understand that. The only place that I have any sort of optimism for the future is in the labor movement, which is why I do what I do. I want to change people's minds about certain things and allow them to see for themselves the autonomy that they can have and change their immediate workplaces, somewhere that they spend 80% of their adult lives in, and therefore set up the groundwork for a mechanism of pushback against the Democratic Party and force the Democratic Party's hand to do the right thing when it's a necessity to do so. And
look, all smart progressives are going in the same exact direction, right?
Yeah.
So
I've been on that direction.
Yeah, so my co-host Anna's obsessed with the labor movement. Totally believes that's the answer. Nina Turner, who's another host on our network, just announced today that she set up a new group with Chris Smalls to back the labor movement and to even get funding for the labor movement whenever they go on strike, et cetera. And so that's what pushed FDR. That's what's going to push the next generation. Because, Haas, the economic situation isn't going to fix itself. Like, the old line of power never concedes without a demand, never has, never will. So we've got to demand it. And right now, since the economic situation is so bad for workers, they keep demanding it, right? So more demands.
It's not just that either. It's all, yes. It's also, there is actually a real tight labor market and not a tight labor market with like, you're right, though. The confidence is different because we've already had tight labor market periods where income has not increased in the way that it's supposed to. Real income, real wages have not increased in the way that it's supposed to. And even economists are baffled by this reality. Well, the reason for that was because labor had lost and capital had won that war. Whereas totally now, in a post-COVID world, I think with the unimaginable amount of profits that these corporations are raking in, labor has a decent bargaining position because they saw that, if people just simply didn't go back to work, that people were fucked.
So look, they took too much. And so this is how we get to balance. We push back. So we're in the middle of pushing back. And so everything is trending in our direction. The only thing is we can't, snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. And there's two icebergs ahead. And so I'm not Pollyannish. I see the icebergs probably better than anybody else does. And I'm really worried about it, okay? One is the progressive movement, honestly, and this is where you and I can begin to disagree, getting too radical and too away from what most Americans want. And the second iceberg.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So look, saying things like all sports leagues, including professional ones, has to allow trans women. They don't have a choice, etc. That pulls it like 2%. You say, hey, it's a moral issue. It's really important.
Do you think
sports leagues are like the most important thing in the whole wide world?
Do you think it's actually a significant issue? Do you think that is a significant issue or a driver of the conversation, or cynically weaponized by Republicans with like some liberals taking the bait and then having a conversation about it instead of being like, fuck off, nobody cares about this, stop talking about this immediately?
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what the right wing does. They weaponize every single issue. What I'm trying to get progressives to do is stop falling in the trap. So the minute they say it,
but do you think
our side comes out and goes, no, this is the most important issue. And anyone who disagrees is a Nazi. You just called 98% of the country Nazis.
Okay.
What are you doing? You're alienating voters like crazy.
Do you think that organizers on the ground, both trans and cis, that are or members of labor unions are even using this as a talking point in any meaningful capacity, or is it simply reactionary Republicans bringing this up because they tried and unsuccessfully failed to push the anti-trans button with bathroom bills.
Except for the fact that they passed all those bills, which I despise. I hate those bills.
Let me just clarify something here. In the lead up to the 2016 election, you had the North Carolina bathroom bill that was anti-trans, right? You have to have the gender assigned at birth be the bathroom that you go to.
That totally failed.
Okay,
right.
That failed. That was so objectively a failure that Donald Trump came out and said, I don't give a fuck where Caitlyn Jenner shits as long as she's shitting in Trump Tower, right? Something along those lines.
But
I'm
then
paraphrasing.
he tried to ban them from the military.
Hold on. Let me finish.
That was also unpopular. Sorry, go ahead.
Let me finish. Okay? Yeah, he tried to ban trans people from the military. That was also unpopular. So, what did Republican interest groups do? The family, moral family, Christianity fundamentalist groups. What did they do? They went back to the drawing board and they looked for a reasonable sidestep that would still be anti-trans, that would open the door to anti-trans conversations that they could push for that was more popular. What did they find? They found that Americans love the concept that is bullshit, meritocracy. What is the most meritocratic process in the entire country, maybe in the world? Sports. Americans love sports, and Americans believe that meritocracy is real, and it's especially real in sports. So they changed the narrative away from trans people can't pee and poo in the fucking bathrooms to trans people want to destroy sports. It was simply just another way to attack trans people, which is precisely why I think a lot of people correctly looked at that and went, why the fuck are we talking about this? This is ultimately marginal. You just want to fucking eliminate trans people from public spaces. And I have never given an ounce of legitimacy to that argument, despite what public polling says, because the reality is no one gives a fuck about it. Let me tell you something that's more important than public polling, however. Because you brought up...
So far, I don't even see where we disagree.
Okay, so you brought up legislatures, state legislatures, Republicans like passing incredibly, horrifyingly psychotic anti-trans bills.
Yeah.
Okay? And they're passing this. Yet there is no viable single issue voter out there that is like desiring these anti-trans bills. Although... if you ask, Americans directly about like, what do you think about a 14-year-old trans girl like participating in a swim meet? They might say 56% might say, fuck that, that's wrong, we shouldn't do that. But the reality is there isn't any real momentum on the ground for anti-trans shit, okay? Voters do not give a fuck about trans people overall. The overwhelming majority of voters actually have apathy for trans people. They just don't care about it because they think that there's no trans people in their lives whatsoever. Republicans, however, have kept on pushing the anti-trans button over and over again and made it their major fucking talking point.
That's right.
That has yielded horrifyingly bad results for them. And instead of like fucking assassinating Christopher Rufo, for example, who's one of the leading guys here at the Manhattan Institute that was like doing the CRT stuff, doing the anti-trans stuff, instead of going, dude, what the fuck are you doing? You ruined our midterm chances when Biden had a historically bad economy, when a red tsunami was supposed to happen. That was a major failure on their part, one that actually has led to Kevin McCarthy's ouster as the speaker right now, a domino effect of like the Republican Party imploding in and of itself, partially because the only thing that they have been looking for, the only thing that they have, the only tangible policy position is just increasing the dial of transphobia, but there's not enough people on the ground who are demanding it. And those who are demanding it are increasingly more psychopathic, which is pushing away normal fucking Republican voters who are just like, I just want tax cuts, man. Like, I'm racist, sure, but like, the fuck's going on? Like, I don't give a shit about this. Like, why are you talking about dismembering children's genitals all the fucking time? You sound like a psycho. They're getting outrage fatigue, and it has demonstrably been a failure. And that's part of the reason why you don't see Trump talking too much about wokeness or trans people. He like brings it up every now and then in his commentary, but it is far less than Ron DeSantis, wouldn't you say, who is an objectively less popular candidate.
Yeah. So with the exception of Trump and DeSantis thing, which we can get into, I actually agree with everything you said. So now let me give it to you from my perspective and why I'm concerned about it. So, number one, Republicans bring this up because they're fishing and fishing. All their positions are deeply unpopular. So they're fishing for one position that they could finally get some sort of popularity on, right? So they dig all the way down to trans sports at the high school level, and they get over 70% saying, okay, no, meritocracy, we shouldn't do that, right? So if at that point you and I agree, we fight back when they propose a bill, and we do the best we can, and we aggressively make the case that you just made and that I make all the time on the air, right? And then we're okay with it, and everybody would agree. The country is in favor of trans rights, okay? So, but in the midst of these conversations, one of the things that happens is, okay, on air, I say, okay, you're asking, fine. I think at the high school level, trans girls should be able to participate with biological girls. Because
why do you talk about that at all beyond how?
Because it comes up. Because there's a bill. I'm fighting against the bill.
Okay. But why do you talk about it beyond it being a distraction, perfectly cooked up? Because you said you agree with me. Why do you talk about it beyond it being a fucking bill that is laughably unpopular, so unpopular that like incredible.
It's not so unpopular that it didn't pass in all the red states.
Wait, what?
The trans bills that passed, not about bathrooms, but about sports and all that horse crap.
But none of those bills were passed with popular support, Cenk.
I know they're passed by Republican legislators, and the Republican legislators are appeasing their base.
Okay,
and their base is maniacal, and their base wants it.
No, they're not. That you and I are entirely incorrect.
So they go fishing in that area, and in that conversation, I say, hold on, let me finish.
Okay.
I say, at some point, look, my real opinion is, at the professional level, yes, of course the leagues get to make their own decision, and sometimes, yes, trans women have an advantage, and the league is allowed to say, no, we're not going to allow it, okay? So what happens next? Every single person that I know in mainstream media saw what they perceive as a progressive community, then called me a Nazi. Then they go, okay, progressives are lunatics. I'm writing all of them off, right? Are you kidding me? Because somebody's had like this microscopic difference of opinion with like the most radical end of the progressive base. They're right-wing pivot, Republican, Nazi. Well, okay, you guys sound nuts. Mm-hmm. Okay, and don't do that.
You think
just say, hey, I disagree. So what?
Mainstream media literally called you a bestiality-loving horsefucker when you tried to run for office in California. You think they needed the fucking... you think they needed like 11 trans people with anime avatars on Twitter calling you a Nazi to be like
on them on a platter?
That's crazy.
And
they have material
issues that are much larger.
They have
that also cost us, and it makes it look like we are extreme when in reality 2/3 of the country's on our side. Take the fucking win. Take the win. So here's another one, and this one I don't know how you're going to light up on this one.
No, this
defund
is
the police. It's a terrible slogan.
Okay.
A terrible idea.
We're moving away from other talking points. Let's get back to the one issue that we were talking about. My perspective is that they have every interest to fuck you every single time. Mainstream media does, because of their underlying material interest in defending the corporate oligopoly structure that we have. This is who funds them. This is how people rise into positions of power in the media infrastructure. You've been a part of this already. Personally, you've seen it happen to you at MSNBC. So like, there is no reason why they're not looking at like magical trans people on Twitter and going, oh, that's it. Here's the reality. They're being crazy again. They're calling Cenk a Nazi.
Yes, they are. And they're looking for any excuse. I agree with that. But then stop giving them excuses, which is the point you started with.
Okay. There's a major disagreement here. We are at odds,
but we're not at odds. You say don't talk about it. I say don't talk about it. We say you say you're against the bill. I say I'm against the bill. You're for trans rights. I'm for trans rights. But my point is
but the difference is the same people that call you transphobic also called me transphobic all the fucking time. The difference is I don't change my perspective at the end of the day, or even offer it any fucking additional light, because who fucking cares? You just do what you think is right and you keep pushing. And I think that it's very dangerous and very scary when you get moved by your base of support that you have worked tirelessly for 20 years and like building and solidifying, turning on you and saying you're right wing now. I think that
didn't happen though. I agree with you. It's 11 people on Twitter, so our audience is just as gigantic as it's always been. So you can go ahead and cry about it if you're among those 11 people. So I'm not worried about that, Haas. I gave it as a small example, and defund the police is a much larger example.
Okay, we'll get to that in a second.
Progressives are getting pigeonholed by mainstream media and Republicans as radicals, when in reality we are the overwhelming majority of the country. So we need to focus and get our messaging right.
And that's why looking at a couple random people and greatly emphasizing the impact that they have, and even attributing like the mainstream media's perspective shift on progressives, when you and I both know that they never fucking gave a shit, and they don't even need like a couple of random trans people to call you a transphobe to like justify their hatred for progressives. Okay,
let's go to a larger
There's no reason to talk about that. Now, as far as like there was one other point that I wanted to make, because we were talking about state legislatures. This is really important, please. I think that a broader Republican project, and I think you'll agree with me on this, has been that they want to dismantle the power of the legislative body and then utilize the state legislatures where they know they have control due to gerrymandering and ridiculous district maps, where they can, even if they don't have popular support, even if they lose the majority of the votes, still maintain a majority in the House and the Senate, right? State House and state Senate.
It's one of the most important things in the country.
Absolutely. And then there's a secondary side to this, though, because there is the judiciary. So they've also they've dismantled the legislative body. They have pushed their power in undemocratic ways through the state legislatures, and then also solidified that power and codified it by court packing, right? So they have this very open project within the Federalist Society, all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States, where they have hyper-reactionary judges that they've placed in positions of power through appointments, right? So when you do that, there is no need for a democratic process, which is precisely the reason why saying that these Republicans are actually acting out the desires of their psychotic, bloodthirsty base when they're pushing for, trans bills that are getting passed in every single state legislature is objectively false. Why is it objectively false? Because one, Republicans have never cared about their base. Let's be fucking real. They just use the culture war issues as a way to like draw up support. But in reality, they don't really give a shit about what the base wants. If they did, then they would have never in a million years allowed the Roe v. Wade decision to be overturned, because that was a much better way to just keep dangling in front of the most active base of support they have, white evangelical Protestants, and never actually push to actively dismantle Roe v. Wade and completely criminalize abortion in red states. That's why they have a major fuck up right now, because they're suffering from their own success. So I don't think that pointing to state legislatures and bills that they've passed to say, no, there is actually a decent amount of support for anti-trans legislation from the Republican base of support is correct, especially when all signs point to the opposite. At the national party level, the Republican Party is currently going through a crisis, an identity crisis. They have capitulated to incredibly bloodthirsty, psychotic fucking culture warriors for so long that they end up leading like Ron DeSantis, pushing for objectively unpopular bills, okay, by utilizing the state legislatures, and then suffering the consequences on the perception in the national party.
Yeah. So look, again, there's a lot I agree with, but let's break it down one by one. So it can be both, Haas. It can be that, yeah, they've done the gerrymandering. Gerrymandering has done most of the work for them, and it made their seats pretty much impenetrable. So if the Republican legislators do something, it doesn't necessarily mean that the voters of that state want it, for sure, right? But it can be that also the vicious end of the Republican base does want it, and the polling indicates that they do want it, right? And so, but the larger
No.
point here is,
I don't agree. I don't think they're.
No.
I don't think they're.
Hold on. Let me be clear, because it depends. If you say, do you hate trans people? The answer is no in the polling for American people. They are in favor of trans rights. They are in favor of treating trans people in the same exact way about employment, health care, etc., which is wonderful. And again, 2/3 of the country is progressive. Okay, so when you go to ask them about bathrooms, no. When you ask them about the military, no. These people are willing to give their lives for this country, and you don't want them. What kind of a monster are you? So the American people are on our side on all those things. That's why they had to go digging for this stupid high school sports thing, right? And on that, I've seen the polling, and it's over 70% of Americans are on the side of banning them, right? Now, I'm on the other side. I'm with the 30%. And leave the kids alone, right? It doesn't matter if your daughter was going to break a record or whatever. Just calm down. Stop checking the genitals of kids. You're sickos. Leave them alone, right? So, but having said that, what they're trying to do, Hasan, this is the oldest trick in the book, and they did this back in the 1980s, is they dig until they find something unpopular, and they make Democrats or the left wing attack them on it. So, for example, flag burning. So flag burning, everybody knows it's protected by the First Amendment. They know it's protected by the First Amendment, but they want to make it seem like we hate America and we hate the American flag and we all want to burn it. So they contrive this bullshit issue. No one's burning the American flag. It's happened like twice in the last 20 years. And then the Democrats can't help but say, well, it is a First Amendment issue. You can burn the flag, and they go, aha, you unpatriotic assholes, right? So so my point is the same point you're making, which is don't fall for that trap. So just say, hey, we disagree on this, move on.
You're saying don't fall for that trap and don't even defend it, or don't even, saying
defend on the bills, because when there's a bill, you have to defend.
Yeah.
But then point out super aggressively what the Republicans are doing wrong.
Chelsea Manning has a question for you. Q for Cenk. Is it possible that trans people are reacting the way we are because we hear people make these talking points, and the next thing we know, people are saying, this is why I had to become a conservative time and time again? And that right-wing slant is true for the likes of Dave Rubin and many others, even including like former TYT people. I think that's where a lot of people are defensive when they hear you talk about this, or when they hear people fall into the trap of like jumping on every single non-issue that ultimately turns into discourse, like bonus holes or whatever the fuck, like some psychotic weirdo British person came up with at the fucking Daily Mail, right? If you are even pushing that discourse as though this is like real and applied and genuinely a threat to democracy because it's something that everyone is like forcing you at gunpoint to utilize, then all of a sudden you are a culture warrior, whether you admit it or not, because these issues are distractions and they're stupid as fuck, and that nobody should even talk about it, let alone amplify it. I'll take it one step further, though. There is one other issue here, and that is the Democratic Party. What do reactionaries do? They have no agenda, right? They have no agenda. They react and they try to claw back civil liberties. That's their goal. And if the Democratic Party is not actually pushing, okay, if the Democratic Party is not actually pushing material realities to change in a positive way and giving something to the Republicans to react to, right, to fight against, then all of a sudden that the reactionaries are leading the discourse.
Yeah.
And that is the problem, which is why whenever issues like this come up, because listen, I have a very dynamic stream. People come in here all the time. They say a million different things and they want me to address it or they want me to talk about it. I am very terse, very strict about, like, whenever someone comes in and they're like, address what Anna said or address what Cenk said, I'm like, no, fuck off. I don't care. Shut the fuck up. We're talking about real issues. Okay? So,
but by the way, that's almost exactly what we said, and everybody called us Nazis. So not everybody, those folks. So look, guys, first of all, let's just be clear on everything, okay? So number one, I fight for trans rights. I have for 21 years when no one else was. So if you don't like it and you don't believe it, that's up to you. You can do whatever the hell you want, okay? So, and I just told you all my positions, which are actually 99% identical to the most extreme trans right activists, right? So we have a microscopic difference. So somebody asks me about it, I say it once, I'm done with it. I'm done with it. And then a giant pile-on starts because people want clout. They're like, oh, no, he's not as good as me. He's not as pure as me. He's a right-winger. He's a Nazi. Okay, so I'm like, I ignore it. And then they just keep going, and I don't give a shit. They could do whatever they want, but then don't pretend that I brought it up. No, you brought it up, and you made it a giant issue, and you're the one hurting the progressive cause and the trans rights cause. We win on every goddamn issue on trans rights. Why are you going and dying on the hill that no one agrees with you on? You're going to ruin trans rights on other issues.
Okay.
We're going to lose because you're being so extreme. And then every ally you have, you're like, nope, I'm going to be more pure than them, so I'm going to burn their bridge down. I don't want any allies. Okay, well then don't have any allies.
Okay, if both of our goals are aligned and we are interested in coalition building and actually fighting for justice, okay, there's two different things to do here. One is try to engage in purges and try to say, this purity spiral is self-defeating, which I agree with you on.
100%.
Or the other thing is to just stay the course and just let people chirp into the void and never give them an ounce of pushback, because why? Every single if people are looking for class, if people are looking
get
for
out of here.
No, that's not a get out of here situation.
Here I'll tell you
this
exactly
is very
what
important
happens.
because
this is really important because you know why? So Haas, so every time we say any little thing, all the other streamers and stuff, these come in and go, oh, we're better than the Young Turks. We're better than the Young Turks. We agree with you 200%. They're such monsters. And they clutch their pearls and stuff, and etc. And then we go, okay, guys, but hold on. We said a tiny thing. You guys had this nuclear reaction. Okay, say another tiny thing and defend our position for like 3 minutes on air, right? And then another round of nukes, right? We're better than the Young Turks. We're the most pure. We're the most progressive. Radical. We have to be the most radical. And if you don't believe us, then you're a Nazi. Well, and then I made it an issue. I talked about it for about a total of maybe 3 minutes in all the Young Turks, okay? And then everyone else talked about it for 200 hours.
I know,
and pretended that it was us.
Okay, here's the thing. Here's the thing that there's two different parts here. One, you've immediately ascribed to bad faith arguments to these people. You're like saying they're cloud operated.
Do.
Okay, so one, that might not be the case. There might be genuine disagreements. That's number one. But at which point you think, well, you know better than them, right?
No, they could disagree.
Okay,
I don't give a shit.
Okay,
about
but listen. But like, okay,
even
if they are bad
faith,
faith,
I'm going to call them Nazis.
Okay, even if they are bad faith, right? Okay. Even if they're bad faith. What the fuck are you doing giving them more clout?
I don't say anything. And then they do 200 shows about it.
It doesn't matter.
And then pretend I'm the one saying it.
It doesn't matter.
So hey, can we agree that all the others, like Lance or whatever the fuck their names are?
No.
Oh, no, they should all shut the fuck up then, okay? Right? Because that's what you're saying.
Dude,
why are you making a big issue out of it? Because I only said it for 1 minute. They said it for 200 minutes. Why don't they shut the fuck up?
Oh my God, I'm gonna lose my mind.
I don't even understand what we're disagreeing about. So we agreed 99% on the issue, and we agree.
I think the major
99% that it's not a major issue, and people are making a big deal out of it.
I think the anger that people feel towards that sort of thing inevitably derives from offering any fucking light to that conversation, especially when you understand that it is just like bullshit talking points that have been focus tested and being brought up. The moment that you give it any validity, okay, and now I'm not even talking about like,
let's talk about a general thing.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm not even talking about like, talking to other leftist people or like defending your positions or whatever. I'm talking about how deeply and undesirably unproductive it is to offer any amount of consideration to literally talking points that are cooked up in a fucking laboratory about 0.1% of the fucking population.
As they do 200 shows back to back.
There are a million streamers.
Are you telling them?
There are a million streamers that have not only said things about you, but have said things about me as well. There's a difference between you and I, though, because no matter what happens, when people do write those things or people do say those things about me, I've learned the hard way not to give it any credence whatsoever and stay the fucking course. And ultimately, if people have made up their minds that I am a transphobic person, then that's, GG's. There's nothing I can do about that. If people think that I'm bad on racial issues or if I'm a misogynistic person, then there's nothing that I can change about their perspective. They are entirely too malleable, which is why I have assumed positions on so many things that the American population considers radical, whether it be foreign policy and what I believe in, or whether it be trans issues, even if it's something that Americans across the board consider to be like unpopular. The reason why I can stay the course in spite of that pushback is because I fucking ignore it, because I know that it is unproductive. That's it. Yeah. And the second thing I will say, and this is something that I try to talk to my audience about quite frequently, is that being a progressive is not about having black people or trans people hype you up all the fucking time. There are going to be plenty of moments where you are going to be at odds with activists. There is going to be plenty of moments where you have disagreements with the marginalized communities that you claim to speak on behalf of, okay? And ultimately, it's not even about a logical conclusion to those problems. It's about being empathetic, right? That's at the heart of the matter.
So let's
being empathetic.
Let's do a super important distinction, okay? Because and I don't think I made a good enough case for this distinction, and I want to be way clearer. There's a difference between randos in the world that care about this issue, whether they agree with me or disagree with me, or they heard the wrong thing about me,
by the way,
or they have heard the right thing and they still think this guy's a Republican and I hate him. No problem. And media figures, streamers, etc. Those guys are largely scorpions. And it's because the incentives and disincentives create scorpions. Because when you attack someone else, you get into the algorithm loop on YouTube, mainly YouTube, but in some other places as well, and you try to get attention. So they don't even know, I hope they don't know, a lot of them, that they're doing it on purpose. I hope they're not doing it on purpose, but probably some of them are, right? But they think like, no, this is really important. I have to correct the record by attacking the Young Turks. Oh, look at that. My views went up. What a wonderful coincidence. I'm going to do it again and again and again. And this is not just about radical left. Are you crazy? No way. The right wing started this. Why does Steven Crowder dress up as me?
Yeah.
Right?
I was about to say, listen.
Right?
Listen, but you're...
So why did Jimmy Dore attack me like a nut job? Why did Sargon of Akkad go back like 15 years?
Partially
why
because...
did Sam Harris? Why did all of them attack us?
Partially because you respond.
We're the largest.
Partially because you respond. It's called getting farmed. Trust me, I know from personal experience what that's like. I, for a very long time, I got farmed like a motherfucker, okay? Because, just like you, perhaps because I am also as stubborn as you are, I couldn't shut the fuck up anytime there was, like, any error, okay? Whenever someone said, this is what Hasan believes or whatever the fuck, I immediately rushed to correct the record, thinking that there was good faith discussion to be had. Now, out of the people that are actually criticizing you, there are people who I do like, who I do appreciate. I'm not going to get into that part of the conversation because I feel like that's going to blow a lid in this. It's going to make you blow a gasket. But the reality is that ultimately, if you want to have a productive, if you want to have a productive and successful coalition, you just can't stress that shit out, okay? You can't.
No, I'm good with
it.
Look,
Even if they say...
I was super clear. You like what we're saying, you come to the Young Turks. If you don't like it and you want super radical weirdos, there's like a million shows for you.
That's what you're doing. Like you're casting everyone else in a bad light. Don't even talk about it. Don't even bring it up. That's it.
Okay, so I know. I've been punched in the face 200 times, and I'm not allowed to punch back.
Exactly. 100%. That's what I'm saying. Yes, you get it. That is what I'm saying. That's what being fucking progressive is, okay? If someone on your side is punching you, you ultimately turn around and say, I don't give a fuck. it's fine, because the real motherfucker whose face I have to punch is out there that actually holds on to all levers of power. Because while we're fucking arguing about the minutia of your perspective on trans issues, or whenever like you choose to engage in like any kind of reactionary framing of an issue, there are actual fucking people out there who are making everyone's lives actively worse. So why the fuck would I ever care about what some dumbass fucking YouTuber has to say when Ben Shapiro is, again, stealing our fucking lunch money and doing whatever the fuck is necessary to keep propagandizing every fucking awful position that makes people's lives worse. Right. That's why I fucking cover Ben Shapiro every day, by the way, you dumb cocksuckers in here who fucking think like, oh, why does the song talk about Ben Shapiro all the time? That's why. Because he's the fucking bad guy. You will never see me fucking agree with Ben Shapiro or Steven Crowder or any of those fucking bullshit charlatans out there, because those are the fucking bad guys. I don't give a fuck if people call me transphobic or racist or whatever the fuck. I'm not gonna stray away from my point of view, but more importantly, and I don't think you do either, but there's this one issue that you and I have, there's one disagreement, there's one difference that you and I have. You spend entirely too much time thinking about all the people on your side who fucking hate you, okay? Who say you're bad and wrong, even if it's a misunderstanding. Don't even fucking clear it up. It doesn't matter. People will see where you are genuinely coming from when you keep saying the same shit that you're saying that you've said for 20 fucking years. That's it, okay? A lot of people yelled at me during the fucking Hogwarts drama. There were every trans content creator on Twitter yelled at me, okay, and said, you're a fucking piece of shit, you're transphobic. Oh, what, you can't play one fucking game that's transphobic? It was an idiotic fucking take from the jump. I said it a month in advance that this is entirely too popular of an IP. The best thing to do is not like try to do boycott. Is try to boycott this fucking IP that's completely devoid of the transphobic person that is making money off of it, and instead use it to fundraise or push the issue further. Everybody yelled at me, said that was incredibly transphobic. What the fuck did I do? I shut the fuck up. I said, you guys are wrong, but it doesn't matter. History will absolve me. It did. Who gives a shit? The game fucking sucked. Right-wingers like Ben Shapiro made commentary on it, saying that Hasan is terrified of trans people in his own audience, and that's why he also has to capitulate to the trans people in his own audience, when if I wanted to capitulate, I would have never said anything about Hogwarts whatsoever, and I would have just stayed the course and never played it and said, yes, it's a transphobic fucking game. But I didn't do that because I'm a stubborn piece of shit. I yelled at the people, and I moved on. Many of those people who thought I was transphobic in that fucking fervor have come to the realization that they were maybe wrong. A lot of people don't want to admit that they're wrong, especially when tensions are fucking high. It doesn't matter. They finally quietly come to that conclusion that you were on, if they truly do believe that you are genuinely on their side. That's it. So just make your work speak for itself. You don't have to constantly fucking yell about random trans people online. And yes, that's what being the bigger progressive media person it revolves around. You have to do that. That's it.
All right, look, I'm going to take your advice. Let's move on because it's a microscopic issue.
There you go. So let's talk about defund the police now.
Okay, so the overall issue that
and
we
before we do that,
there's two.
I got to run the 3-minute ad break real quick, and I'm going to pee, but you can keep going.
No, if you're going to run an ad break, run an ad break.
No, I did already, but people can still watch because there's 56,000 subscribers in here, 56,000 strong. So most people are not seeing the ads. All right, go ahead.
No, we're just what I'm going to say, guys, is that there's two icebergs that we need to talk about in terms of why what could prevent progressive victory. Started with the iceberg to catch you guys up if you join later of progressives going far and then getting painted as radical when in reality we're 2/3 of the country. I'm going to pick that conversation back up in a second, but you know what? I'll use this time to do plugs. One is not for myself. It's actually, and especially if you're subscribers to Haas, you guys might be perfect for this. This is to help you guys out. I got no dog in this fight. I like the guy who's doing it, Larry Lessig. He's the godfather of campaign finance reform to get money out of politics. But if you go to cancelsuperpacs.com, you can win $50,000 especially if you're a good editor. Not going to be that many people that enter, okay? So $50,000, cancelsuperpacs.com. all they're doing is they're asking you to make like a super like interesting, understandable, relatable video about getting money out of politics. But they have all the instructions at cancelsuperpacs.com. Okay. So I hope one of you guys wins the $50,000. That'd be awesome. I'm done with it. And then we've been talking about my book, Justice is Coming. You can buy that at tyt.com/justice, tyt.com/justice. Okay.
Damn, this man is doing an ad within an ad break, dude.
That's what I did.
Hell yeah.
Because
All
you went
right,
to the
no,
bathroom. What am I going to do? Talk to like an empty chair? I'm not Clint Eastwood.
You can talk to the chat, but anyway, listen.
I did. I just made them somebody in there $50,000.
Okay. What were we going to talk? Oh, defund the police. Okay. Issue with messaging overall. Another great issue because you and I have duked it out on our famous Thanksgiving specials that we do, where you come here and we argue about issues that we have disagreements on, genuine disagreements on. One of them is crime, right? Not to say that like I like crime and I think crime is awesome. I jokingly do say that from time to time, but ultimately nobody fucking wants crime. We might have a disagreement on how to solve that problem, right? Now, you brought up defund the police. So I would like to hear your position on that, and before I get into my monologue. Okay,
so first of all, it's the world's worst framing, and framing matters because it gets into people's heads and leaves the impression of who you are as a movement. Mm-hmm. And whenever I talk to people who are in favor of defunding the police, the very first thing they usually say is, "No, I don't really mean defund the police." Then why did you call it that?
So
don't call it that at all.
What would you message it as?
So, look, it depends on what you're trying to do. So, for example, and I believe in, as I think you, but we do have real substantive disagreements too, but I believe in criminal justice reform. I believe the cops' training is completely wrong. They're taught only protect yourselves, don't worry about the citizens, etc. Are there racial issues? Of course there are. Are there class issues? Of course they are. So I would want massive reform, and I would want the messaging to be around reform, which the great majority of Americans actually agree with. Again, 2/3 of the country is progressive. They agree with us. Don't drive them away with bad messaging, okay? When people hear defund the police, they hear there's not going to be any cops, and they panic. And it's not just white folks that panic. It's not just right-wingers that panic. Ilhan Omar almost lost her seat in a primary because 78% of African Americans in her district did not want to defund the police.
So how about this? Here's my reframing. When this works with a lot of like liberals that I talk to, at least rich and poor. Hey, police, do your fucking job. Is that good?
That's actually really good, and I talk about that all the time.
Okay, listen. Here's the issue, though, right? With defund the police. As far as messaging goes and as far as optics goes, you yourself have basically created an argument that you are not using in this situation. You said the media is all too powerful in manipulating public consciousness, and they can change people's attitudes for the better, even if it's entirely at odds with the material realities and the oppressive constructs built on top of those material realities. If that is the case, then optics issues are simply an issue caused by the media not pushing the message enough. Is that what you're saying? So if in a future where MSNBC is truly progressive, that they could just be like, no, defund the police is actually fucking super sweet. Let's go forward. Do you think people would be on board with it?
No, because it's mixed. So yes, media pushes the message, but the message itself is also important. So if you had the message of kill all people, that would not work well, even if MSNBC pushed it to ad nauseum, right? And defund the police is such a fundamentally wrong framing.
You think defund the police is a message as aggressive and as wrong as like kill all people? No.
I gave an extreme example, so okay. Not all examples are the same, but I think defund the police is almost as bad a message as you could possibly find, because it leaves the impression that there will be no police, no safety, no security, and it freaks people the fuck out. That's a fact, and it's shown in every poll.
Okay. Defund the police means what? Reallocate some of these ballooning police budgets to social safety nets and social programs, because that's where crime starts, and that's the best mechanism to combat certain types of crime, at the very least. Okay.
So that's where we get into substance.
So you don't agree with the policy, not just the optics. Let's just clarify that.
Yeah. So Now, the optics, I 100% disagree. When it comes to policy, it's much more nuanced. And by the way, if people don't like nuance, then you're not going to like me at all. Because you're, oh, no, I want a black and white world. I want everything to be extreme. No, I'm not that guy. So where does the nuance come in? So if you say to me, should we reform the police, reform the training? Obviously, as I said earlier, I say yes, right? Say, let's reallocate some of the funding to social services. We keep the same amount of money, but move some of it from cops.
I don't think
to
they should keep
social
the same amount of money.
Okay, hold on. We'll get to that in a second. Some of it to social services because they can handle X better. I'm open to that. I'm totally open to that.
So it's a semantics difference. You're saying like keep the same amount of money, but don't defund it.
Okay. First of all, semantic difference is a giant difference, as we just discussed. Optics, framing, etc., makes a huge difference. But when you get into the substance,
it doesn't matter.
There are some things I disagree with.
But you don't.
So
but you don't
for
agree with the
example,
policy anyway. You don't agree with the policy of like our ballooning police budgets year over year have not actually genuinely improved the lives or genuinely fucking put a dent in like in fixing some of the pervasive problems. You don't agree with that?
No. So look. So here's what happened. So if you had asked me that a couple of years ago, I probably would have agreed with that. And then we did in some places reallocate some of the money or cut some of the money. And so it's a little bit misleading in places like Washington, D.C., because they took from one budget and moved it to another budget, et cetera. But the bottom line is they did lose a number of cops in a bunch of cities, okay? They lost raw number of cops.
Yeah, they died to COVID.
Yeah. Well, look, there was a lot of factors, okay, including cops not doing their job, which I'll get to in a second. But having said that, less cops, but that's not the main problem. But that was one of the contributing problems that led to more crime. Now, other things that I agreed with now have created issues. So, for example, no cash bail, okay? I was totally in favor of no cash bail because I totally get the argument. I was the one putting forward that argument of, hey, a rich guy and a poor guy does the same crime. Rich guy gets out on bail. Poor guy can't get out on bail. That's totally unfair, right? But what wound up happening is recidivism is a massive part of crime. And so when we did no cash bail, yes, there are a number of guys who are down on their luck, high, whatever. There's a number of factors. And when we did no cash bail for them, they just went out and did more crime, more crime, more crime, more crime, more crime. And it became a real significant problem. And so when I look at it,
a certain point, I got to cut you off because you've made a couple points that I definitely disagree with.
Right. So, let me just button it up this way.
Okay.
And there's other factors. But my point is, let's be open to how do we get to the right reform so we have justice and they don't beat up black guys for no reason. They don't beat up homeless people for no reason. They don't shoot people for no reason. But at the same time, have a reasonable policy where we protect the citizens.
Okay, great. So I've said this before. I'm not an abolitionist in the sense that like I don't believe that there is no necessity for a group of people, whether it's democratically organized or not, that will maintain the presence of law and order, but also solve crimes. And do what police are theoretically supposed to do: protect and serve the community, protect and serve the people. In the United States of America, throughout the history of the United States of America, I do not believe that the police force or whatever it was originally in its original inceptions, whether in the North they were the guys who were supposed to protect commerce in shipyards or slave catchers in the South, have ever done that. They've always been protecting and serving the interests of capital. So that's definitely an issue that I have. Having said that, however, you brought up a couple different points that I disagree with in terms of defund the police and also about how less police have caused more crime and crime has like exploded in cities and whatnot.
The contributing factor.
I do not believe that in the slightest. I do believe that what is known as the blue flu has created a lot of issues that police are supposed to theoretically solve, which they never really have done a good job with. If you look at their clearance rates, you will realize that. Okay. But beyond that, it's gotten even worse than it was before, because these are the most selfish, the most lazy, the most entitled, gigantically, insanely violent, uneducated paramilitary group that you could have ever fucking put together, and all of their ineptitude And criminal negligence is constitutionally protected. They have no right to they have no duty to actually have to protect you. They can shoot you if they perceive you to be a threat when you're running away. All of these things have been protected by the Supreme Court. The real reason is because police are supposed to be a violent brigade that will defend and protect the interests of capital when push comes to shove. That is the reason why they are the way that they are. Okay? The idea that their funding is fine and that their numbers are diminishing and that's what actually is like a real gigantic problem for crime is, in my opinion, a historical and completely incorrect. They have gotten more money year over year, including in the defund the police years, where not a single fucking precinct, with I believe one exception, it might have been Minneapolis, if I'm not mistaken, okay? Not a single fucking precinct actually had diminished resources or diminished funds. As a matter of fact, they got more money, and they got the most amount of money in comparison to all of the other amenities that the local governments are supposed to offer. The Los Angeles Police Department gets costs taxpayers $8 million a day to operate. Okay, and what is that operation? Fucking not doing shit when a robbery is happening in front of them. Okay, now if you ask them, they'll say it's because you don't want me to be violent. You made me this way. You don't want me to stop the crime, so I'm not doing it. They're like petulant little fucking children, okay, who refuse to do the fucking job that they are supposed to do. They have the best fucking workplace protections. They basically live in like a social democracy. They're the only individuals in society that have like fat pension programs and permanent job security. And then on top of that, what is their job? Is to be able to fucking shoot people if they want to and get away with it. It's fucking insane. Okay?
So
it's nuts. The entire structure is fundamentally broken. Okay? And that is by design. They are supposed to be that way. They are supposed to operate that way because when push comes to shove, when people are rioting in the streets or whatever, okay, when the inherent contradictions become ever present and people start to react to that in either direction, okay, whether it's like reactionary activity, 3%ers and the like, or whether it's like people fucking throwing Molotov cocktails or whatever because they're losing their minds at the reality that they have no economic prospects and it feels like their lives are getting progressively shittier. Okay, they will sit there and they will put their fucking police force in rich neighborhoods and protect those people and ensure that storefronts are not damaged.
So there's actually a lot I agree with you on. The main difference is that I think all those factors contribute, whereas you think the biggest factor is the cops basically not doing their job / their job was always misdirected in the first place, right? So I don't disagree with you on that at all. I just think that that's a big part of the equation, but not the whole equation. So, and I'll give you a couple of examples from LA to give you a sense of what I think are the issues. So in terms of the funding or the number of cops, I think that is a factor. You don't think it's a factor, but I actually think it's a relatively small factor.
If that was the case, then policing would have gotten better year over year as their funds grew, right?
Hold on. And so, by the way, though, hold on. Don't make that argument, Huss, because crime statistics got way better throughout the years as police budgets did get larger. Right? So that doesn't really help your argument. Now, but I don't think it's that simple either. I don't think it was just the police budgets. No, there was a lot of different things that happened with crime that made crime go lower, including, by the way, lead in the walls and the paints and the cars. It's a very complicated issue, right?
Yeah, but I'm glad that you at least brought up the lead point because crime has globally gone down.
Yeah,
in areas where police budgets...
Absolutely.
In areas where police budgets have not gone up as high as the United States of America.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out that it doesn't help your cause to say that the budgets have gone up and crime has gone down. That did happen. I don't think that's a great correlation either. Don't get me wrong. Okay, now I think and I agree with you that the bigger problem, the cops not doing their job, is in a story that I'm going to tell you. But it's also because of some of the laws that we passed. And so now some very violent crimes are misdemeanors, and they should not be misdemeanors because misdemeanors get pled down to nothing Felonies get pled down to misdemeanors. Misdemeanors get pled down to nothing. Okay. So no one's talking about that. That is a giant part of the problem.
What crimes are you talking about?
Some sexual assaults are misdemeanors. Okay, that's insane. It's totally insane. So the guy in New York subway took a dump and smeared it on a woman's face, and that was a misdemeanor. How is that a misdemeanor? Are you insane? Okay. So, look, and maybe some mistakes were made there, and they should have made some of those things misdemeanors, and that's exactly my point. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and you don't have to go to extremes and say we should only focus on one or the other, right? But now I'll give you an anecdote that is an example of the type of thing that happens. So I have a neighbor who's...
by the way, we're not operating under the principle that like New York, the New York Police Department, or the New York court structure, or New York in general, currently led by a cop mayor, is in any way, shape, or form like engaging in police abolition, right? Or defunding the police.
No, but...
Because it is more expensive to run the NYPD than like multiple countries' military.
Yeah, I don't think the budget is the issue in New York. So, so let me give you that
But
anecdote.
you used the poop example to,
No, that example was not about budgeting at all. That example was, if that's a misdemeanor, it gets pled down to nothing. So we have to make sure the serious crimes are felonies.
Okay. By the way, so you and I do agree on NYPD not being underfunded, but if you ask the NYPD, they are the most underfunded.
Oh, of course, they're always going to say that.
Okay.
Look, are you kidding me?
So they're lying. Okay.
So here, I'm gonna get to that in a second. Of course they're lying. Of course they are. So it's not. What am I trust? Do I just trust cops? No way. So let me explain. So I have a neighbor. We wound up having some deranged person.
Also, that guy
street.
was charged with felonies. Apparently, the poop man.
Okay. So good. I'm happy that he was, but there's
so the question in that situation though is like,
but originally he was let go.
Why?
And so we have to so that's an example. There are many examples, but let's if you want to dive into that one and see what went wrong.
It's your
why
anecdote.
He was let go. So that's great. Let's find out why he was let go, because he definitely should not have been let go.
Okay, so you brought up an anecdote.
So that was about cash bail.
So he got out because there's no cash bail. Right? Okay, got it. So cash bail was important to talk about as well, which is really important, especially with the conditions in Rikers as the way that they are. One reason why.
Hold on, can I just tell the story because it informs
but
the rest of the conversation?
I didn't think that I had to fact check you on something, but of course we're gonna have to cut through for a second. You know what I mean?
Okay, so why was he let go? Was it cash bail or a felony misdemeanor issue? Because it was definitely one of them.
I don't know why he was let go.
Okay,
you're the one who brought it up. I did not
11
know.
times. If I misremembered and it was 12 or 9, okay, corrected. No big deal. I'm happy to have whatever it was corrected. But there's a million examples of just like that.
The reason why cash bail and all of these kinds of I guess supposedly progressive implementations are happening is not because people have George Soros-backed district attorneys that want to undermine the American criminal justice system. It is out of necessity because of how draconian the American criminal justice system is that we simply do not have enough space in our carceral state that currently houses, chains 25% of the entire population's incarcerated population, despite America being only 4% of the world's entire population. We have an overpopulation and overcrowding problem in our prison system, and that problem didn't happen overnight. It did not materialize out of nowhere. It happened with centuries of having the most draconian outlook on crime and punishment and refusing to analyze the structural issues that cause crime, the poverty cycle, the cycle of poverty and violence. That is why we are now at a situation where our prison population, our prisons are filled to the fucking brim, and the alternative is what? Like building more prisons, I guess, instead of trying to push for a different way of trying to solve the underlying reasons as to why crime and mental disorder manifests in the public. That is my argument.
Yeah. No. So listen, if you say we imprison way too many people, I 100% agree. So now, but then you've got to break it down. So why did we imprison too many people 80s, 90s, 2000s, etc.? Because we had insane drug laws. That marijuana possession was a very serious crime, right? And we filled the jails with people
There's one other
over
reason.
marijuana.
There's one other reason.
What's that?
There's a material reason for it. Slavery.
Yeah, I got you. So, and we built private prisons. The private prisons fund the politicians. All that is
Private
true.
prisons are a minor, even though they are like objectively one of the most cruel and inhumane things that you could do. That like Europeans look to and go, "What the fuck? You guys have that? Like you guys capitalize and profit off of the existence of fucking prisons? Like that's nuts." That's a small part of the puzzle, small part of the conversation.
So
the state prison structure also relies on slavery as a form of punishment. And
but Haas, okay, first of all, I think that the prisons were far too many, and we were imprisoning too many people, and mainly on drug charges. And yes, there are nefarious other reasons that you point out, I point out, private prisons, you point out slavery. And yes, slavery is real. They make them work for $1 or less per day, which is ridiculous. I know and fight against all of that.
Cenk said, "Get your money up, not your funny up." You say, "Get your money up to the fucking to the prison system." You know, pay these motherfuckers more.
So okay, but look, but at the end of the day, what is it that we're putting people in prison for? If you say just generically, okay, let's have less people in prison, that doesn't make any sense. Okay, should we let out murderers, rapists? Of course not, right? Mm-hmm. So the question is, what should people go to prison for? So we all agree they should not go to prison for marijuana possession. That's insane, right? But we all agree that they should go to prison for murder and rape and the horrible crimes. So now we might disagree around the edges, but those are important edges, right? And so now when say the prisons are awful, I totally agree. I don't know why we allow for the prisons to be disgusting, right? And how they treat people, the solitary confinement. I mean,
the average existence of a poor person in America is disgusting. Why the fuck would they care about prisoners on top of that?
No,
Nobody
but
cares.
what we do in the prisons is beyond
of
inhumane.
And of course.
So there's all the jokes like, aha, you're going to go to prison, you're going to get raped. Why is that funny? Why is that a thing that we think is normal? No, rape is not normal. People going to prison and getting raped is not normal. That's insane, right? So do we need massive reform of the prisons? Yes. Do we actually need to spend more money to make those prisons bearable? And I don't mean just give it to the guards. I don't mean just give it to the warden. I mean actually make the prisons bearable. And we know that creates less crime. Look at Norway. Recidivism is much lower in Norway, and they have much more humane prisons. So reasonable people agree, progressives agree, the great majority of the country agrees, but yet our goddamn politicians won't do it. So those are great places to start. Okay. When you get to the issue of cash bail, Haas, I was in favor of it, but now it clearly shows that there's a problem with recidivism. So can we agree, hey, you get no cash bail on the first one.
Can I say something?
But on the second one, if you do another crime, then you need cash to get out of. Then you need bail because you are incorrigible. You're committing more and more crimes, and I'm not going to let you do that. I'm not going to let you brutalize the citizens because it's not fair. It's not just. We have to talk about the things that are real, that are in the middle.
Hold on. This is important because. Let's walk through some stuff here because last time you were here, you brought up some talking points that were just I was fundamentally at odds with, and this is another issue of disagreement, a point of contention. Okay, so as far as cash bail goes, okay, the walk me through what you think happens in that structure. Like, do you think that someone goes up and in front of a judge and they're like a habitual reoffender, and the judge just goes, "Oh, there's no cash bail, so you're released"? Do you think that's what happens?
Unfortunately, a great amount of times that is what happens. Yes.
Okay. No, it's not a great amount of times where that happens. It does certainly happen, though. I'm not going to say that it doesn't, but this is, in many respects, the classic Michael Dukakis moment where crime is a hot-button issue, and it invokes a lot of passion out of people. So anecdotes work really well in comparison to actual empirical evidence. The problem with cash bail is not that like people just keep stealing cars. You can give me 1,000 examples overall of being like, this guy's a carjacker. and he got released immediately, and he jacked another car, right? Ultimately, the data does not show that these people are becoming repeat offenders, and what you are describing is an issue within the criminal justice system with a singular judge, or maybe some judges that fuck up every now and then. Because ultimately, if someone is a habitual reoffender, the job of the judge that you are bringing up is to say, no, dog, you're a poop guy. You're the guy. I'm sorry. You've smeared too much poop. Like, this is your second time doing this. I'm not offering you bail, because cash bail does not mean that judges have no power to offer. Judges have no power to stop you from, entering a carceral facility at any given moment.
If you committed a murder, you're not going to get bail anyway.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that is.
But Haas, then do you agree with me that if you do it a second time, that you need to pay bail?
I don't think that legislating that is the smart decision, because.
Yes.
Well, if you
go ahead.
Well, then
why don't you think it's
then
smart?
the 3 strikes law would be a smart idea.
Okay, no, 3 strikes is you lose your entire life.
Yeah,
you lose.
Yeah,
etc. And so, no, there's a difference. There was a guy in Louisiana that was serving a life sentence for stealing a pair of hedge clippers, right?
Okay,
but that's a different issue.
The principle
than,
behind
I'm letting you out to do another crime and another crime and another crime.
The principle,
I'm asking you, like, so would you? Is there? If it's not 2, is it 3? Is it 4?
What you're describing is literally codifying that in that way is quite literally running into the same exact problem that feeds into the carceral state. Whereas, the problem there is judges should have discretion, okay? And they should apply that discretion appropriately, rather than saying they are no longer able to apply discretion whatsoever because the law does not permit you. Because
I'm perfectly comfortable saying if someone does, especially if you go to 3 crimes, they got let out with no bail. No, sorry, brother.
That's quite literally the principle.
The law,
you're describing the principle behind the 3 strikes law.
Except for the fact that one is about bail, and you're going to get an actual court date where you will receive justice and you will receive a trial,
which of course,
etc. The other one is we take your liberty away for the rest of your life.
Which of course brings us back.
Difference.
Which of course brings us back to the major reason as to why people are just kind of letting people go, and that is that Rikers is an insane place to even fucking exist. And no, a lot of those people are not getting their fucking day in court immediately because the courts are fucking backed up because we have an incredibly draconian criminal justice system.
That's why you shouldn't commit 3 crimes in a row, because you don't want to go to Rikers.
Okay, that's awesome that you said that, because you think that higher sentences or more aggressive ways of punishing crime is an adequate deterrent strategy when there is not a single piece of paper that you could point to throughout. You just gave that as a reason for deterrence.
It
doesn't work.
No, brother,
it doesn't work. It has never worked.
No, hold on. So when a guy commits 3 crimes in a row, I'm not worried about deterrence. I'm worried about getting him the fuck off the street so he stops punching defenseless women in the face while they're trying to get to work. Okay, so I'm going to take his ass off the street. You've committed enough goddamn crimes when we're going to put you away. And if you want to cry about it, well, sad day for you.
I'm shocked.
You shouldn't have punched a poor lady in the subway 3 freaking different times.
I'm shocked that you do not see, on the one hand, you have sympathy for the other guy who was swept away under the same draconian rules when he got
because that guy can't get out of prison for life. The other guy just has to go to trial and prove he didn't do it.
Okay. So the guy that was suspected, because you don't have to actually do a crime to get thrown in Rikers, right? The guy that was suspected,
yes,
in a
and
situation,
that does happen.
In a situation where
much more common occurrence is guys doing crimes over and over and over and over and over.
Okay, no, that's not.
Recidivism is like the #1 problem.
Recidivism,
a tiny amount of criminals create a giant number of crimes.
Wait. I know that. Recidivism doesn't happen specifically on the bail side, though. Recidivism is the sum total of all people who were incarcerated that get out of prison after serving their sentence, Cenk. There is a much larger number of people that are serving prison sentences and getting out and then engaging in crime again, rather than like being apprehended for a moment, being detained, and then fucking going out and doing the crime again. That's not recidivism.
You're just talking past reality. You guys are going into the... Hold on. You guys are going into stores. Guys are harassing people on the streets, etc. And they're walking, brother. They're walking. And that's why they're coming back and doing it again and again and again. If you say that's not happening, you're arguing against reality. And that's exactly what I'm saying here. You're losing people. You're losing people who are on your side because they go, Haas, that's not reality. That's not the reality that I live in. They're locking up all the stuff in the CVS because guys keep coming in and taking it.
That's another really good. See, again, all matter
you
of.
You think that it just all matter? Everybody's making it up. CVS is making it up.
Well, they're not. As a matter of fact, if you look at the actual data coming from the National Retailers Association, they literally talk about shrink, which is not necessarily simply people stealing. 36% of that, the $112 billion number that they point to in terms of total shrink, actually is external theft in the form of organized retail theft, which, by the way, isn't the overwhelming majority of external theft that's happening. It's just a fucking media fantasy. Okay, 26.
No, it's not. We see with our own eyes, Haas.
Dude, do you want me to describe to you what the reality is by giving you empirical evidence, or are we going to talk like you're a reactionary conservative by just talking about your fifis? Like, this is not
fifis. You're crazy, man.
No. You're literally. Oh my God, you're doing Ben Shapiro.
No, brother, come on. You're telling me that Philadelphia didn't happen? Are you telling me they didn't go into that goddamn store?
No, of course it happened. Do you think that $112 billion of shrink is happening? 36%
always happens.
Okay, exactly.
But now it's worse because they've added this extra layer.
Is it worse? That's really interesting because according to the National Retailers Association, that fucking same number that you hear in local media, that actual study shows that shrink has not increased in comparison to former years, and it's actually trailing along at 1% increase.
So all those shops in San Francisco closed because they don't want to make money? Because they wanted to make some political point?
Do you think organized retail theft is capable of stealing $112 billion? Or do you think
not
that
the whole shrink, Haas?
Yeah, exactly. It's literally internal theft in the same way that it has
always existed.
Employees stealing 26%, which, by the way, totally on board with that. Keep doing that.
Don't do that.
Okay.
Don't do that.
Not only that, but also there's inventory mismanagement, things that are damaged in the process. That's a part of shrink as well.
Always.
Shrink across the board has not increased in a dramatic way, according to the national.
Why are they closing down the stores?
Because real estate.
Because you can't make money.
That's insane. They can't make money because of real estate, Cenk. They can't make money because brick and mortar has no basis anymore. There's no way to make money with a fucking Walgreens. No, that's a much larger factor. It's insane to say that like 3 fucking teenagers or 100 teenagers even are a gang of roving teenagers are able to literally take down the entire retailers in neighborhoods. That's crazy. You know why shrink is actually increased? Self-checkout. That's why shrink is actually increased, because you know what contributes to shrink? That $112 billion number. You know what actually increases that? You and everyone else that goes into a fucking Wawa and like steals the Skittles. What do you think is happening more frequently? Roving gangs of people that are able to steal billions of dollars of merchandise, or a sum total of every fucking American doing the same goddamn thing without even thinking about it when they just go into a Wawa and yoink a Skittles at 2 a.m. when they're high as fuck? That's what is actually the shrink.
But Haas, I'm not denying any of the factors that you mentioned. Those are all real factors. But you're denying the one factor that everyone can see with their eyes. So are you saying, so what should we do with those guys who break into those places?
Okay.
Shouldn't we put them in prison right away and make sure?
Do I think that police should stop robberies? Yes, I do.
Thank you.
That is insane. No, that's not a few moment, because the reality that you are dealing with is not like what is actually happening, and it saddens me to see you go along with mainstream media narratives that are inherently reactionary.
It's not, Haas, you're not living in reality.
Brother, how am I not living? I just gave you empirical evidence. You gave me look around. That is the reality. How is that not any different than what Ben Shapiro does?
First of all, we We all see that they walk into the stores, they take the stuff. We all see that the stuff gets locked up. We all see the stores closing down. Not only that, we all experience it. So finally, can I just get to the anecdote that I was talking about? Because it's instructive, not because it proves definitively anything, but it's instructive for the point I'm trying to make, okay? Which is partly agrees with some of the things that you have said, okay? So we got a guy in the neighborhood. He's carrying around this metal pipe, and he's sharpened the edge, and it looks like a frickin' spear. By the way, there was another lady with a machete, and these are real stories. You can catch feelings over, but they're absolutely real. And by the way, the lady with the machete, nobody did anything about her because the cops say, "Oh no, we don't see the machete," and that's the cops not doing their job, right?
I agree. Yeah.
But at the same time, they go, "We take her in, she comes right back out." Okay, so at some point, she finally grabbed a mom and a kid. So finally, they took her away. She comes back 48 hours later. Okay, fine. But now, the guy with the spear is yelling the N-word 24/7 on the corner of the block. So I have a biracial neighbor. She comes out, and he sees her, and he starts calling her the N-word, and he's got a goddamn weapon, right? And then cops come out, eventually, begrudgingly, right? And the cops say, "No, we're not going to do it." He puts away the spear. The other lady takes it away. And the cops go, "No, we're not going to do anything about it." And they say, "Why?" My neighbor asks, "Why? 2 reasons. One, we bring them in and they get released. You want me to bring them in? He's going to be back out here in a couple of hours. Okay?
Earlier you said you don't believe cops, and now you're saying you believe cops.
Let me finish the story. And then as they're leaving, they then say, "No, if you care about this, you should care about how you vote." So that's the cops saying, "I'm not going to do my goddamn job unless you vote Republican, unless you can let me kick people's ass for a living. I don't like solving crime. I like kicking ass and when I have an overwhelming advantage," right? So is that real? Yes, it's real. But it is also real, Haas, that when they bring them in, they let them out. And so what happened with the lady with the machete? She's back out in 48 hours.
Thank you for bringing this up because it made me more angry at the cops.
That's my point. Both things are true, Haas.
Okay,
cops aren't doing their jobs. And if I was in New York City police, if I was Bill de Blasio back in the day, I don't know if you remember, the cops turned their backs on him in some press conference when he was doing like a mild critique of cops or something.
Yeah, I remember. They run the show over there, the Sergeant Benevolent Association.
Yeah,
you know what I would do? They dox his child.
Yeah, you know what I would have done? I would have been like, "You're fired and you're fired. Go ahead and sue me." Okay? And police chief, you're fucking fired. And if you don't do your goddamn job, you're all going to get fired.
Okay.
Go ahead and sue me. Okay?
Can we before
both are factors.
Okay, can we get back to the major difference of agreement that we had, because like you were doing the anecdote thing while I was trying to show you something that is objectively true. Walgreens, when they closed down their shops in certain areas, they said it was crime. Crime was the reason, right? I at the time said that's fucking bullshit, and it didn't matter because everyone was doing the same thing that you're doing. Look around. Crime is happening everywhere, right? Except Walgreens now openly states a year after the fact, "Oh yeah, I guess the CFO came out and said, the chief financial officer said that maybe we cried too much last year over theft." So the question at this point is, why did they do that? I know why they did that. Do you have an idea of why they said crime was the reason why they were closing their shops?
So look, you're taking Walgreens as one example, and there's a lot of different companies that react in different ways, and there are a number of factors. So if Walgreens admits that they overstated the crime, there was a real reason why they closed their shops. I agree. So in that case, one of the other factors was probably larger, right?
Yeah. So what is the reason?
The point you make about
real estate. So what do you think it was?
The point you make about real estate is actually a perfectly good point.
So you think it was Amazon?
Is also one of the factors.
Okay. So you think it was like same day delivery, Amazon, e-commerce dominating?
That's complicated too, because that's a contributing factor. But COVID made a giant difference because people were not actually physically going into the stores.
True. So that's good. So you recognize all of that. Okay. So even one of these executives that was leading the fucking charge openly admits that they were lying a year prior. And the National Retailers Association that puts out those numbers on shrink is openly admitting that the increase in shrink is like actually perfectly in line with the increase in retail shopping, and it's totally normal. Then you, as a smart person, values empirical evidence over personal anecdotes, should in that situation do what?
So, Haas, look, if you want, next time I'll come with a book of statistics for you. But are you saying that in Portland, that the good progressives in Portland were full of shit and they panicked and they got rid of their progressive legislators and got tougher on crime because it was just all a mirage and they bought into the mirage? No, Haas, you see the crime, you see the numbers going up in select cities, you see it sometimes affecting some retailers but not other retailers. And so it is a confluence of factors. But if you think that actual crime is not one of the factors, go ask the good people of Portland, go ask the good people of Seattle, who are all overwhelmingly progressive. And they're saying, we've had enough of this shit. Will you, for God's sake, when someone commits a crime, put them in goddamn jail?
Okay. I don't know what to tell you because, like, you can come back with more statistics, which I think if you are a media person with a profound amount of influence, 5 billion views a month, like you said.
No, a year.
Or 5 billion views a year, okay? You should probably have those statistics because those statistics should have been guiding your
So you think the people in Portland and Seattle just totally got played? There was no crime. The situation wasn't out of control.
I'm not saying that there is no crime. I've never said that there is no crime.
Okay, but that it was overhyped.
Crime
they threw out their progressive legislators
because
they were wrong.
That's really interesting that you mentioned that because in San Francisco, Chesa Boudin was recalled, right?
Right.
Because he's like woke George Soros-backed DA, and yet it's not like they got a handle on crime after that.
Because it's about the laws. It's not about one individual. So that's why I'm focusing on too many misdemeanors that should be felonies, and we got to put a cap on no cash bail. I'm giving you very specific, reasonable amendments of what we need to do to have a fair prison system and a fair criminal justice system that does not over-imprison people and that does not under-imprison people, so that you protect everyone. And there's no
come on, you can't say that there's a problem with under-imprisoning people in America, right?
Well, these days, unfortunately, in some cities there are because of these laws that we passed.
In some cities, what cities? Point to a single city where there's an imprisonment issue.
For the last 3 to 5 years?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Portland, Seattle, San Francisco.
Okay. San Francisco or in the California in its entirety, okay? Because San Francisco is like, what do you point to with San Francisco's under policing? Like the classic grand larceny restrictions have been limited, right? So why did it happen in the last year or so when that's been in place as a law for, 10 fucking years almost?
That's because they started watching the local news and going, oh, we can do this and there's no consequences. Let's just all go steal shit.
Okay.
Because nobody's getting arrested.
Okay, got it. But we already established that retail theft has not actually increased according to the Retail Association. So where is that happening? That is outside of the bounds of reason.
So look, you're coming at, all right, Hus, you win. And next time I will come with credible stats about crime because you're obsessed with proving that our eyes are lying to us and that the stats are perfectly lovely. There's no extra crime. There's no extra retail
this is really
theft.
important. This is really important.
We're all making it up.
This is the same conversation.
Cenk,
this is the same conversation that I had in some respects with Andrew Tate, right? No, I'm serious. Anecdotes have a tendency to misguide us because, of course, when you see something happening right in front of your eyes, you have a tendency to think this is happening infinitely more frequently, which is why we rely on empirical evidence, right? That is
they're letting people go. That's a fact. That's a fact.
But one part of that,
the lady has a machete. She's back on the corner in 48 hours.
I understand.
You're denying people's reality, and you're driving them crazy, and you're making them go, I'm not going to vote for that person or anyone associated with that guy under penalty of law. I am not going to let my kids get kidnapped by a machete lady because Haas has some stats about Walgreens.
No, you're mixing and matching two different things when we're talking about it. You're saying crime across the board, specifically in retail stores, is happening, and it's happening at levels that previously were unheard of or unseen.
You're obsessed with the retail stores. I'm telling you
that's one aspect of it. As far as the criminal mishandling of the personal situation that you're talking about, I'm right there with you. It is unimaginably cruel that police have this fucking stranglehold on the neck of Americans where they just go, sorry, I'm not going to do my fucking job. That requires swift justice. in the sense that these cops that misbehave in this way, that get paid $300,000 a year with overtime pay that they fucking did, all to just sit around in a fucking parking lot and jerk off all day and look at their fucking laptops and drive around and drive over fucking red lights with their lights off every goddamn day for no fucking particular reason. Those pieces of shit need to learn to do their goddamn jobs.
If you
One
think
of
that's
that
the
is
only
being
factor, you're wrong.
How is that not the most significant
are they letting
factor?
them go or are they not letting them go?
They're letting them go and then telling you they're letting them go because, sorry, there's nothing we can do because
They're
these
not letting
woke
them go.
DAs are
The prosecutors
going
letting them go, Haas. The prosecutors are letting them go. And then the cops are not doing their job. It's a double whammy. Okay? So are you saying the prosecutors haven't changed anything about cash bail?
Do you think
haven't changed anything about misdemeanors versus felonies?
Do you think
and that it's just magically
Do
happening?
you think prosecutors are just like, we love that fucking do you think that in the United States of America, under this criminal justice system, okay, do you think that prosecutors are going, we love crime, let's fucking let these people go? So
No.
what is it about then?
So when a law changes and a prosecutor says, hey, brother, this used to be a felony, but now it's a misdemeanor. Now I got nowhere to plead. So I plead him out to nothing. And he's walking because I can't try all these cases. I can only try about 2% of these cases.
Okay.
So I have to do pleas. So when you call something a misdemeanor, I'm going to let that dude walk 9 out of 10 times. Okay. So all I'm saying, Haas, is a slight change where we go, those crimes should not be misdemeanors. They should be felonies. And we go one by one. And I bet you we get overwhelming agreement, right? And the other slight changes, hey, somebody commits a crime once, don't make them do a cash bail. That's not fair to poor people, middle class people, etc. But somebody does, in my opinion, 2, you can say 8, whatever the number is, and we could argue over the number. But if they do 2 crimes back to back, no, then you've got to stay in jail and you've got to pay bail. That's it.
Okay. I don't agree with your solutions because the issue, the problem here is that, and the reason why I went back to retail theft is because it's the one that like everyone fucking constantly talks about, is that when you're talking about like violently threatening someone with a fucking weapon, okay, that's not a misdemeanor. Like
in a lot of places it is.
No, it's not.
All right.
Okay, in Los Angeles, is it okay? Threatening assault with a deadly weapon is a misdemeanor in Los Angeles?
No. First of all, let's look it up.
It's a felony. It's a felony.
No, dude, you just took the most extreme example.
What do you mean?
You're like attempted murder. Is that a misdemeanor?
Wait, no, I did not use attempted murder. I used the anecdote that you brought up. You said making criminal threats or a threatening to assault someone with a deadly weapon is lowered to a misdemeanor. It's your example. I didn't bring that up. You brought it up, and I'm fact-checking it.
I don't know why that machete lady was let out. Okay, so I wasn't there in her court trial. But in terms of tons of sexual assault here, petty, I just looked up like common misdemeanors, right? And so we can get it, like we should do a real analysis of it, but some forms of assault and DUIs, on and on and on.
No, I love that. We will get into that in a second. This is very important, and it deserves self-examination. This is an issue that happened in the real world in your life. This is something that you have used in your commentary. Should you, in your opinion, at least do the due diligence and have checked to see if it was a misdemeanor or a felony when it's an example that you've used before last time you were here? Since between last time you were here and now, do you think that you should have
2 weeks ago?
Oh, okay. You were then you were talking about a separate issue.
Okay, I'm going to read you misdemeanors in California: assault, battery, indecent exposure, shoplifting, domestic battery, trespassing, receiving stolen property,
trespassing.
Okay. You laugh at trespassing. Here's another anecdote. I know you don't like anecdotes, but this is real people's lives. My neighbor comes over, talks to me, says, I got a deranged person in my front yard, and I'm going to call the cops, and he starts to sexually pleasure himself in front of her window. And he says, go ahead, call the cops. They won't show up, which is partly your point, Haas. But when they do show up, they go, "What do you want me to do? I can't." They're going to let him go. I'm going to bring him in, and he's going to come right back here. He's like, "Ha." And so you know what the guy does? He goes into their backyard and just starts hanging out and pleasuring himself and doing whatever the hell. And so wait. You laugh at trespassing. It's so funny.
I am laughing at that.
No,
because,
I'm going to put that son bitch away.
Okay, listen. First, didn't a homeless person masturbate in front of you? Yes, they have. Yes. I had a serial masturbator here as well. So
yeah, they're all over LA because we don't put them away. But they actually, by the way, those guys should be institutionalized. They shouldn't go to prison. They should go to a mental health facility that is properly funded, that takes care of them.
Okay,
but
good.
What we
I'm glad we at least agree on that.
Yeah, but what we shouldn't do is go, whatever, it's not a problem. Just jerk off all over LA, and kids will see it. Maybe you'll get it on grandparents. Who cares?
Who says that?
You kind of do, Haas.
That's the most.
What do you want to do with them? Go ahead. What do you want to do with them?
You already said what I want to do with them. I agree that.
Okay, so now we don't have that current system in place. You and I agree on what the ideal is.
Okay, wait.
What do you think we should do today?
Why do you think that I think that you should be able to masturbate in public?
Because, Haas, you're constantly saying these are imaginary issues. It's
I never said that
a big deal. So,
No,
okay, so what do you think we should do with that guy?
I don't
want to put words in your mouth. You tell me.
I don't think that these are imaginary issues. I've never said that these are imaginary issues. I'm simply stating that some of these issues are demonstrably and nefariously weaponized and propagandized by mainstream media, specifically local news outlets, when the reality is very different and empirical evidence shows that the reality is very different. As a matter of fact, in many instances, the very same authorities that we're getting these numbers from openly admit that these are not as severe as the media presents.
By the way, no, the crime problem is way worse because the cops aren't even bringing them in. So there's all this crime that's not even being reported.
Okay, please, hold on. You asked me what my perspective is, and I'm telling you what my perspective is. You and I have already, going through this conversation, you've already admitted one of the major problems is that the police aren't doing their fucking jobs, right? You already recognize that. You also recognize that they lie all the time. Do you think that the 86% of police which voted for Donald Trump, right? Do you think that those guys have a genuine reason in pushing more reactionary politicians into office, specifically because they agree with them? And one aspect of that is to simply refuse to do your job beyond what blue flu is supposed to be in an effort to get people to feel exactly in the same way that you do, because it's so easy to get people very upset in this circumstance when the media is also aligning with their interests as well and constantly pumping people full of misinformation, as I've shown you, that all ends up moving Americans, which already have a reactionary slant to begin with when it comes to crime and punishment, in that direction that we need more enforcement and not any of the solutions that will solve some of the underlying problems in which crime manifests.
So, Haas, I didn't admit that. I came in saying that. I've always said that cops are a huge part of the problem. I've said that super clearly 800 times. So what I'm saying is that is a giant factor, and another significant factor is the issues of the laws that I have talked about. So now I'm asking you in return, what would you do? And I don't know if you're saying, no, the other stuff is not. It sounds like you're saying the other stuff's not even a factor.
Oh, by the way,
only the cops.
Crime has decreased in Los Angeles. That's the other.
You see, the problem with that stat is that nobody's getting arrested. So yeah, it looks like that you might have a stat go down. That's because the cops aren't A, doing their job, as you're pointing out, and B, we're letting everyone go. So what do you do? Wait.
If we're letting everyone go, that's not crime decreasing, because that's still if someone is being detained and arrested, even if they let them go, that's still factoring into crime increasing.
No, tons of times, like the spear guy, they go, no, the machete lady, until she actually took a person, they just kept saying, no, I'm not going to arrest her. I'm not going to arrest him. I'm not going to arrest her.
Crime is not calculated on clearance rates. Crime is calculated on arrest numbers.
That's what I'm saying. They're not even arresting them.
Okay. Then the problem isn't the woke pervert DAs that are backed by George Soros. The problem is, and I think you and I agree on this, the police not doing their jobs.
No, but Haas, first of all, I never said woke pervert Soros. That's a Republican talking.
I know. Well,
Okay.
well, you do align a lot with Republicans on
No,
this issue.
that's a ridiculous. Look, I just explained it. I don't know how I could be any clearer. If you think it's a Republican to say, hey, maybe we shouldn't let the guys commit 2,000 crimes in a row, well, then you're ceding ground of sanity to Republicans.
I don't think the single person. I don't think a single person says that.
Okay?
Does anyone?
So Haas,
I've
what
never met
do
a
you
person
want
that says
to do
that.
with the guy masturbating in the street right now? We haven't built the great facilities that you and
I
I want
already
to build.
I already told you.
What do you do with them?
The guy masturbating on the streets needs to have both social workers and police officers, which currently exist, come to the scene, okay, and then take the necessary steps. Take the necessary steps to bring them immediate mental health treatment and some form of apprehension in that moment. I agree. That is not something that I disagree with you on at all. I am not if crime is happening, we shouldn't stop it from happening. That is the entire point of why there is a fucking police force. No one says that shouldn't happen. There is not a single, I've never met, I know abolitionists, okay? I love them. Some of them I disagree with. I think that we are ultimately unified in the short term on similar goals overall. Okay, they're leading the charge on criminal justice reform. Overall, I've never met someone who goes, if someone is jerking off in your vicinity, you have to let them go. I've never met. Maybe they exist.
Good. So
maybe they exist, but they are far from politically important.
Then let's make it broader. Okay, cash bail. You say infinite no cash bail, or is there a moment where you would say they've committed too many crimes, they're going to have to get bail?
No, I think that this literally has to be a discretion issue within the courts. That if someone is a routine offender, then of course judges are going to put them in a facility. Like they
haven't yet, but okay.
No, that's not true. They are actually doing that.
It depends on
they
the
are actually
jurisdiction.
doing that, but the problem is the media makes it seem like they're not doing that. If they weren't doing that, then our prisons would not be fucking overflowing in Los Angeles. In specifically in California. California is an incredible carceral state. We have a massive problem with prisoner population.
We're letting people out of prison left and right.
You and I have this
serious convicts
bro,
out of prison
because
because Gavin Newsom wants to move the budget around and save money.
Love what you just said there. No, we aren't. The 75,000 prisoners are being released is a abject lie. These are not people who are violent criminal offenders. You are wrong on that. They are going through the same exact process. They're not being released, Cenk. They're not being released tomorrow after doing a pedophilia fuck crime, okay? These are people who are not violent criminals. These are people who have already served more than half of their sentences
none of them are violent criminals.
That are still
There's no way that's true and you know it.
Oh my God. I'm going to lose
None
my
of them
mind.
are violent criminals. There's no Haas. They're all just angels that just walk into a prison.
That's not. Wait.
Okay,
What
and
are we
God,
talking about?
we just released 75,000 of them.
No, we haven't. We haven't yet. We have not
That's
yet.
the plan.
No, the plan is not to immediately release 75,000 prisoners like fucking
Don't
Russia
put in the word immediate. It is to release 75,000 prisoners. It's not tomorrow.
Dude. That's like. See, this is why people. Hey, get out of there, Kaya. What are you doing? Come here. Yeah, they're releasing it so they could fucking join Wagner. You know what I mean? That's not what's going on. Here's what is actually happening. Do you want to know what is actually happening, or do you want to keep?
Okay, keep going.
Okay,
keep going.
Okay. What's going on in the state of California with the 75,000 prisoner release situation is that they are still, of course, going through the exact same processes where they go and sit in front of a panel of people that analyze whether or not they have actually reformed. Okay, so that same panel, which I don't think you think that panel is like actually, pussies or woke DAs, right? Like those are the same exact people that stop most people from leaving prison.
Change something. If it was the same exact procedure, it would be the same exact procedure.
Okay. Yes, the procedure is accelerating the process that most people go through, right? Normally, you commit a crime and you're in prison, let's say, for 15 years. Now, with this new structure, 76,000 inmates that are allowed to leave prison, some of which does include violent felonies as well, as long as they have served out half of their sentence or more than half of their sentence, and they have demonstrated good behavior throughout the entire process. This is not. Do you
so
feel?
What changed?
Do you feel like
what changed?
What do you mean? What changed?
So what is the thing where we're going to let 76,000 people?
I just explained it to you.
No, but you're saying it's the same exact process. Well, that can't be true.
No.
They passed a law that's going to make it different.
Yes.
What changed?
Yes, the process is accelerating people who have already done half of their prison sentence.
Right. And I would say to you
that they should be in prison for double the time.
No, I would say to you that I use judgment. I don't just go let them out or keep them all in.
Wait,
right? I go what's the crime? What's the crime? It's a minor crime. You did it 20 years ago. You served a long sentence. You're free to go. It's a major crime. No, I don't agree. No way. Okay, go back into prison.
At no point did I say that any part of the panel of judges that allow you to cut your sentence in half as long as you've demonstrated good behavior has changed something fundamentally that allows them to turn the other cheek on violent criminals.
They don't want to spend the money. Why do you think there's a new situation? They're not saying, oh, you know what? Let's just do everything the same, except for this giant law that we passed where the governor is telling you, let 76,000 people out.
The reason why they are able to do such a thing is because California has a horrific carceral state that is over-policed and over-criminalized for far too long. That's why our prison population is overflowing. There are plenty of people that you and I both agree are in prison that don't need to be in prison any longer. Do we agree with that?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, perfect. That's great. This program is supposed to find those people and allow them to be released early. That's it. It's not fucking, oh, you did a rape and then now tomorrow you can get you can be free. That's not how that works.
Anything like that. I'm not a Republican. I don't make extreme claims like that. I'm trying to find a reasonable place where we have balance and justice for both people who are wrongly in prison and general society. And Haas started this conversation with there are two potential icebergs for progressives in not winning elections. And one of them, I said, was progressives going too extreme. And I think that you've accidentally proven my point. Because if a normal California voter watched this debate, there's no way in the world they're going to vote for you. And
that's really
when in reality, 90%...
That's interesting because...
Hold on. When in reality, 90% of your positions that are progressive are incredibly popular, right? But the minute you say to them, oh, no, you're all imagining it, there's no extra crime, it's all the shop's fault, and it's all the cops' fault, and there's no crime, and we shouldn't fix anything. There's no problem.
I never said that.
That's what they're hearing, Haas. And they will never vote for you if you say that.
Okay.
You think that if they watch this debate, now, I don't know your audience, and maybe your audience thinks, oh, Haas is 1,000,000% right. Oh, my God, he had that stat about Walgreens. Yeah, he's got him. But if you think a general voter watches this and thinks that they would vote for you, you're totally detached from reality. The minute they hear you talking about this stuff, they're like, give me anyone else. I don't care if they're a lunatic Republican. I'm going to vote for them.
Listen, the reason why crime was such a compelling argument that Rick Caruso is now the mayor and we did concentration camps for homeless people, you are correct. That's precisely what happened.
Rick Caruso almost won when he's basically a Republican.
Exactly, and he didn't. So there you go. So that's number one. Number two,
not a great example.
The crime rate.
I mean, normally a Democrat wins by like 30, 40 points in L.A.
It's really funny.
Almost won.
It's really funny that you say that because he did have to run as a Democrat, so clearly that matters. Okay, got it. So number one, that is also incorrect. The crime panic narrative did not work, and of course, the only people who own the crime panic narrative are always going to be Republicans, regardless. So all you do in that situation is concede the field to Republicans instead of walking them step by step through the realities on the fucking ground. I know that it is difficult to fight anecdotes with empirical evidence, but this is not something I'm going to do specifically because I think I can win more people over to my side, especially when the crime panic narrative has not been successful. It has not.
You didn't see the progressive legislators get their ass thrown out in Portland and Seattle. You didn't see Chesa Boudin get his ass thrown out of office. So you don't see any of this.
No, I do.
You don't see that.
I do see that.
You didn't see Ilhan Omar almost lose a primary in like the bluest district in the country.
It's almost like moneyed interests are always, just like you say all the time, going to have a specific narrative that they latch onto, that they hammer over and over again, and then actually implement recall. I talk
about the money narrative all the time, and the money issue and the media issue. So those are things that are true. But if you ignore every problem and go, no, it's imaginary, it's the money, it's the media, well, you're going to lose people. And we're losing people. We're losing people because you're pretending crime doesn't exist when it absolutely exists.
I never said crime.
People are
I
saying
never said
2,000 times over, there's crime, and they get right back out on the street.
I never said crime doesn't exist, Cenk.
No, I hear you. That's.
I don't know why. I'm
but
trying
you're
to be.
Saying that
I'm
crime
trying to be.
Didn't go up.
I'm
Crime's
trying to be.
Not a bigger problem than it was before. You are saying that
because crime hasn't gone up.
They're not arresting them, Haas. They're not arresting them. So there's a rampant crime, and they won't arrest them, which is partly because the cops won't do their job, and partly because when they arrest them, they bring them the right the fuck out.
It's entire. If they were arresting them and then they were getting the fuck out immediately, then crime would literally be higher overall in unimaginable.
Not arresting them.
Okay, then fucking deal with the police. Then it's not the woke DAs.
No, because in the beginning when they did arrest them, they did get it. Okay, look, guy, you know what, Haas?
What
so this has swallowed up the entire conversation, but next time I will come with book and verse with like incredibly specific stats and non-stats.
That'd be great.
And everything else in the world.
It would have been
to show you goddamn reality that everyone else on Earth sees.
No.
That no one agrees with you in the polling.
That would be.
No one agrees with you.
It doesn't. No. You can't use polling.
Oh, I can't.
Or people.
I want to win elections. You don't want to win elections? You want to go with the 2% instead of the 98%?
If we're having a conversation, a back and forth about what is objectively the reality of what is happening, then you can't use anecdotes and then leap over to the other side and go, well, this doesn't poll well, as a matter of fact. So obviously we should secede on this narrative.
There is no extra crime. You're saying I saw the stats on the appeal, and I love the appeal, but okay.
Crime.
And I saw like 2.5 articles about it, so I'm going to pretend that there's no extra crime.
What do you mean 2.5?
So
First
you're not
of all,
pretending. To be fair to you, you're saying there is no extra crime.
I'm saying that crime increases and decreases. And right now, we are still at a historic low in comparison
to the 1970s, Haas.
No, not
Don't go back to the 1970s. Crime was higher in 2020, higher in 21, higher now. So yeah, I've got stats, but I didn't know we were going to get into a giant crime debate. I would have brought my goddamn stats.
I'm not saying in comparison to the young terms. I'm not simply saying
definitely gone up.
I'm not saying specifically in comparison to the 1970s. Okay.
However, you agree that crime has gone up since 2020?
Since COVID? Yes. Why has crime gone up since COVID? Not only economic turmoil, but also because no one was fucking outside during COVID. So, of course, if you compare it to COVID versus post-COVID, it's going to go up.
Pre-COVID to post-COVID, crime has gone up.
Crime in certain areas, certain kinds of crime, like specifically murder, for example, in Los Angeles has gone up. Every other type of crime has either remained stable or lowered.
No.
What do you mean no?
So the crime has gone up generally, and specific kinds of crime have gone up.
The only kind of crime that has gone up in Los Angeles, California, is murder. That's it.
So you're cherry picking one city and one crime. Overall crime stats
it's the city
have gone
that
up since 2020. You acknowledge that. Have overall crime stats gone
you want me
up
to expand?
Or down since
you want me to expand on the data? I'm giving you the expansion of the data, and then you say, well, that data doesn't favor my position, so I don't believe in it. You're just fucking cherry picking one data point. No, every other type of crime has gone down in comparison to murder.
In LA, you're saying?
In Los Angeles,
only
yes.
in LA. Okay.
So well, that's what we're talking. We live in LA.
Wait a minute. So has crime gone up or down nationwide since 2020? I'm asking you a simple question.
Depends on what kind of crime you're talking about and where you're talking about. Of course.
Yes, it's gone up. Yes.
Certain areas, crime has gone up. Has it gone up to unimaginable degree that you're talking about? No.
I didn't say unimaginable. I said crime has gone up. People are super worried about it. And I am trying to find in a rational way
can I ask you a question?
The crime to go up. And
we talk about San
Francisco
Francisco
without going extreme.
Okay. we talk about San Francisco, we talk about Seattle, we talk about all these like blue states, right? Do you think crime has gone up in red states? And if crime has gone up in red states, do you think that red states engaged in defund the police narratives? Do you think red states also had a similar structural problem with like woke DAs and whatnot?
I constantly think that there are always a number of factors and that there are different prioritization of those factors. So for example,
so why has crime gone up in South Carolina?
When you talk about crime increasing since 2020, I just wanted an acknowledgement, first of all. I don't know if you gave me half an acknowledgement there. So then when you get into why, there are a number of factors. The things that we've been talking about, the cops not doing their jobs, but it's still, even then, those are actual arrests. And even those numbers have gone up.
Okay.
And then there's the issues. But then there's also the issue of COVID, and the isolation that COVID created has also contributed to crime. Right?
Absolutely. Good.
And so that is why some of them have gone up in red states as well as blue states. But then you have to look at, and we can get in, if we're going to do like a 2-hour debate on crime, yes, then we can get it parse, hey, which crime went up in Portland, which crime went down in Portland, which crime went up in Alabama, which crime went down in Alabama, right? But overall, there is a trend that crime has gone up. And there's also a trend that they're doing less arrests, and hence the crime stats are actually not nearly they're not showing the depth of the problem that everyone is actually feeling in their lives.
Would you say that when we talk about crime, would you say that like as far as macro trends goes, do you think that like 2017 till now is like a reasonable assessment, or do you think that that's too far back in time?
The numbers that I've seen, I don't have the exact 21.7% off the top of my head, but
21 point?
No. I just gave that as a random number. We're from 2020 on. Crime has gone up from 2020.
So
on.
Yes, crime has gone up since 2020. I would never argue with that, especially because, as you and I both agree, crime was at an all-time low in 2020 due to other factors, the most important one being COVID. It wasn't like woke DAs or anything.
Then let me rephrase. It's gone up since 2019.
Okay. You are correct. Crime has gone up nationally. If you look at macro trends since 2019, what do you think? How this includes all kinds of crime, by the way. So, like when you have obviously murder, for example, like I admitted and conceded, or rather, not even conceded. Something is just the truth. That factors into overall crime as well. So, what percentage do you think crime has gone up by since 2020?
Brother, we did this story.
Well, it's 3%. If I were to tell you that crime has gone down since 2017, what would you say to that? Would you say that?
I wouldn't be overly surprised. Crime has gone way down over the years 1970s, 1990s.
That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I'm talking 2017 is not the 70s.
So I got you.
If I were to tell you that crime has gone down since crime is still down since 2017, what would you say to that?
So I wish I had a bigger reporting. What I want to do is I want to dive into.
But why aren't you answering my question?
Hold on. I want to dive into what changed and when did it change. So were the laws changed in 2017? Were they changed in 2020? What laws were changed? How did that affect this? And Haas, maybe we'll look into it and you find out, no, not a lot of laws were changed. It looked like there was a lot of felonies that were brought down to misdemeanors, but that's a little bit misleading, etc. So I'm with whatever reporting abilities we have, I will try to dive into it and get you specific answers. These are not black and white issues. There are contributing factors like COVID, like cops not doing their jobs, but yes, also changing some of the laws so that it got too permissive. Okay.
So the reason, I think you and I both agree, the reason why I said 2017 is because crime has still down since 2017 by 4%. If you look at crime being up since 2019, it's 1%. Do you feel like that corresponds to, one, the information that you brought up? Actually, wait, hold on. Here it is. It's a 1% increase from 2018 and a 28% increase from 2019, right? 28% increase is the number that you used. 2019, okay? So
that seems devastating.
And yet that still is a decline, a 6% decline since 2017. So
crime went down massively between 2017 and 2019.
Yes.
Then after 2019, when I think we might have changed some of the laws, crime went up. And
We didn't.
28.78%, which is a massive increase.
Okay. So, Kaya, no. Oh, shit. She's just like, Kaya, no. King the chords, you fucking asshole. Since in that entire process. Oh, sorry. In this entire process, I said something wrong here. U.S. crime statistics for 2018 was a 6-point decline from 2017. It was dropping, and it has increased from 2021 to 2020. 2021, there was a 6-point increase from 2020. The 28% is an increase between 2019 to 2020.
Yep.
Okay? That sharp increase is due to COVID.
So COVID is
an insane
factor.
Yes, of course.
But it
COVID
might also be those things that I mentioned. So the tweaking of some of the laws around misdemeanors and cash bail. So look, us, we go on forever about this. I think people are super clear about our positions, but we are not absolutely clear on exactly what caused crime to go up since 2019. And what I'm telling you is I will literally put someone
that major
on investigating it more so we can get even greater clarity on what laws were tweaked and what weren't and what worked and what didn't. And I hope that we come back to that discussion, that you keep an open mind about, hey, listen, we were trying to do the right thing, but maybe there was a misstep or two in there, and maybe we can tweak things so that people are protected, but at the same time, we have justice for people who are unjustly accused. We don't want over imprisonment, etc. That we get to a reasonable middle ground where people go, oh my God, progressives are wonderful. They get to a reasonable middle ground, and they get to figuring out what the real problem is, and then they solve the problem.
I need to clarify something here, though. Once again, okay, crime per capita population has increased since 2018 when it was at 4.93 to 6.8. Okay, that's a dip. I mean, that's an increase certainly, but it's not the increase that you're claiming it is. That's number one. And number two, this massive jump that you're talking about from 2019 happened due to COVID.
Haas, you just both said it was minor and massive. So yes, in 2019 it was massive
because the types of crimes that are increasing, is not the types of crimes that you're using on television, the types of crimes that you see on TV. And a major part of the issue in terms of crime increasing in the United States of America is, or rather, the major issue that you have is police not enforcing in moments where they're supposed to. They're not doing their fucking jobs.
Okay.
This is my major argument.
Clear on it. You're saying that there are factors like COVID and police not doing their jobs, and I am agreeing with those factors, and I'm adding one other factor that you're not agreeing with. Okay, we're clear on it.
It's not, but that is a very significant factor, because ultimately this increase doesn't simply happen due to under-policing. Or due to
I'm not saying it only
due to like police budget. No, that's a big part of the problem. You're looking at the situation and saying it's happening due to police not getting enough funds or police fucking leaving in droves or whatever the fuck.
Those are some of the issues that some municipalities deal with.
If that was the case, then
I'm not saying it's the only issue.
If that was the case, then South Carolina. If that was the case,
it's not.
If that was the case, then Texas, South Carolina, all of these red states, Oklahoma, they would not be experiencing similar problems. It almost feels like there's...
Haas, we've been over this 1,000 times now. You're saying that there are a couple of factors, like two, basically, COVID and the cops not doing their jobs. And I'm saying there's three factors. That's I'm not saying that your factors aren't correct. I stipulated that right in the beginning because I don't stipulate it. I agree with you. I agree the cops need to do their jobs, and I agree that COVID drove up crime as well. But if we want to win, we should figure out what is the reasonable answer.
What's the issue with that? What's the issue with that message?
What should be felonies, and to what degree should we do no cash bail? I can't be any more reasonable than that.
Okay, here's the problem. You talk about certain crimes being flipped to misdemeanors, okay, and then being plea bargained away. This also would still absolutely correspond to arrest records in whatever specific crime you're talking about, okay? It should bear itself out in the data. The problem is that it doesn't. Okay, murders have increased, and yet murders in and of itself have not been flipped in any capacity. They're just still increasing. It's not the deterrence has not changed, and yet murders have increased.
So, Hans, for example,
if that was
murders,
the case, then murders would be flipped to like
I think
misdemeanors
murder
or
has
some
another
shit.
factor. So each of these is interesting and complicated on its own right. So I think murder is a good example of, no, it's not just a deterrence. It's not just some of the laws that we tweaked, but I never said it was. But murder has a second factor involved, which is guns. The number of guns in this country is insane, and it has exploded, and it is leading to a lot more murders. And so that is a giant factor as well. Now, the right wing would never acknowledge that, but that's definitely a fact, and that's definitely
I'm glad,
factor.
especially considering that when we look at violent crimes per capita, California and New York and even other states with much better, even Illinois, other states with notoriously better gun laws, as a matter of fact, have significantly less gun violence in general, but also violent crimes in general are lower in those states in comparison to...
I couldn't agree more.
Okay, so you do understand that other factors in consideration are significantly more important than like...
No, I've now said like 2,000 times that there are other factors and they're important. And so, and Haas, you mentioned in L.A., homicide has gone up, but other crimes have not. Just talked about it on the national level, and you acknowledge that there was a significant increase 2019 on. So, I mean, don't cherry pick LA in that regard. We're talking about national average. Crime has gone up, and for the billionth time, number of contributing factors, the ones you're pointing out are perfectly legitimate, and the one I'm pointing out, I believe, is also perfectly legitimate for all the reasons that I have stated. If you don't agree, that's okay, but let's move on, right? So, okay, so that's one of the issues when... Now, moving to a second, we just discussed the policy. Now, when you move on to the politics, which is different, right?
Well, I know the reason why we can't move on from it is because, like, Los Angeles is a major hub of crime that everyone always uses as an example.
But if you notice, I said San Francisco, Portland, and Seattle.
Okay, well, the reason why I'm using it is because, one, I live here, and it's the same exact fucking falsified crime narrative in general that exists here as well, and I see it in my own fucking backyard, which is why this is something that I've looked into quite a bit and tried to understand. The reason why I'm using Los Angeles is for that reason. It's where I have all the data, and it's where I see a shit ton of counterfactual information in the media over. I think you and I both agree that people say that like, crime is a major problem in Los Angeles too. You've used personal anecdotes from crime happening in Los Angeles, and one of the reasons why you say because the data doesn't correspond to your anecdotes is, well, they're just not reporting it, or, well, actually, as a matter of fact, police are just not even arresting or apprehending criminals that are doing violent fucking crimes.
Yeah, I do believe that.
And that is, well, that's ridiculous. That's a major...
It's not ridiculous. So remember when the guy
that's
broke
a
into my
major
house?
problem.
You remember like 10, 12 years ago when somebody broke into my house?
Yeah.
At that time, did I flip out? Did I go, oh my God, it's a personal anecdote, and it was my house, right? Oh my God, crime's out of control. I didn't.
No.
Right? Because at that point, it wasn't like this at all, okay? So now, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about almost every person in LA has a story. So I go to a Supercuts. They go, look, the glass is shattered. The icy store next door, the glass is shattered. So what happens? Well, she says, number one, they started shattering the glass, throwing bricks through it. Called the cops. The cops, A, wouldn't come out for a long time. B, when they finally came out, they wouldn't arrest people. C, when they finally arrested people, it didn't make any difference anyway. And so we finally stopped calling the cops because the crime is so out of control. And the cops won't do their jobs. The prosecutors won't do their jobs. This is a random hairdresser lady. She didn't talk about prosecutors. But she talked about how there's no point in calling anyone anymore. Crime is so out of control. We've just accepted it. That doesn't go in the stats.
Yeah, it seems to me like the real issue is policing and cops not doing their fucking jobs, despite, as you and I both agree, I think, consistently getting funded more and more year over year for the past, every decade.
It depends on the jurisdiction.
What jurisdiction have cops experienced severe or any kind of defunding, as a matter of fact?
In Washington, D.C., they moved money around, but it did affect the police budget and a number of cops in Washington. Crime did go up.
So you're saying
it's a 100% correlation.
So you're saying,
I am saying that is
what
a
jurisdiction?
factor.
Just Washington State?
Washington, D.C.
In Washington, D.C.
So that's a story that I remember that we covered recently.
Okay, so you're saying in Washington, D.C., they actually defunded the police by like moving their budgets around.
Yeah, it's a little bit complicated because it depends on how you do the accounting. It decreased in a raw number, but if you look at it based on how they moved it around, it didn't necessarily decrease. I don't remember all of the details now.
Here's the reactionary
but the
framing
number of
that
police did go down.
Here is the reactionary. No, I don't care about the number of police decreasing. Once again, we're talking about funding first. Okay, we'll get to the decrease in police numbers in a second because you, I think, also openly admitted that there are a multitude of different factors at play when the number of police decrease. Okay, as far as budgets goes, I can't speak for DC in particular, but I know for a fact that they said this exact same thing about LAPD, for example. The way that people try to justify defunding the police has happened, right, in the reactionary news framing is by looking at budget allocations where, let's say, the LAPD gets, what, $3 billion? Their operational budget is something around like $3 billion. Every year, their discretionary spendings, not dissimilar to the military, increases. If they were supposed to get a 10% increase in their budget, if they got an 8% increase in their budget, even if the libraries were supposed to get a 5% increase in their budget and they got no increase in their budget, they look to that situation without adjusting it to like all of the other factors, all of the other departments not getting an increase in their budgets, and they say they defunded the police. They were supposed to get 10% and they got 8%. Additional funds instead. That is not defunding the police. That is still funding the police more than all of the other instruments of local government.
I agree with that.
So that
example.
in and of itself is a lie. Okay. As far as DC,
I didn't say it.
No, I know. I'm just saying I don't know about specifically DC, but as far as I understand it, it could be something along those lines. Here is WUSA saying that the DC police budget did not actually go up, but DC's budget went to a final vote in front of the full DC council, and the council ended up shifting management of $23 million school security contract from DC police to DC public schools. That shift did, in fact, leave the MPT's final approved budget number less than the year before at $545 million. So do you think that $23 million of funding, changing from a school security contract and taking away money from school resource officers that were supposed to be funded and going into the DC public schools instead, specifically because this was allocated for the school resources, right? So the DC public schooling system decided, instead of giving more fucking cops or putting $23 additional million in the hands of cops in the DC schools, we should put that money into the DC schools instead. Do you think that actually corresponds to the narrative that you were talking about, or is there something I'm missing here?
Yeah, there are things you're missing. So that is one of the issues that happened in DC, but a couple of other ones happen as well. But the bottom line is that there's less police officers in DC. And now the mayor, the Democratic mayor, and then even a city council member who's very progressive, has flipped on it and said, we didn't do it right. We got to make sure that there are more cops. You know, you could argue about which part of the budget the money went to, et cetera, but the bottom line was there was less cops. And I'm not the one saying it. Very progressive council members and the mayor are saying,
I know, but this is not even about cops. This is about school cops, which are still getting paid, but instead the school security contract is being paid out from the DC public schools rather than the DC police instead.
So I remember covering that part of the story, and my recollection is that I said on air, that one, for example, is not that big a deal because it's still the same money. They're just transferring it from one set of cops to a different set of cops, right? But there were other issues. But the bottom line, Haas, is do you think that, look, I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm not trying to be like, ha-ha. But like Oakland NAACP put out a statement saying, for God's sake, we need more cops.
Okay, no, we can't move away.
Hold on.
You brought up DC.
Hold on. Hawaii NAACP joined the Oakland NAACP and saying, we totally agree. The Washington City Council, the Washington mayor are all said the same thing. So all these different people, have they bought into Republican framing, or are they maybe seeing something that you're not seeing that's affecting their local communities?
Cenk, every time I dive into the personal examples that you're bringing up, whether it's anecdotes or news stories that you've covered, the truth is very different than the way you have presented it And immediately,
I'm telling you, there's less cops in D.C. That's what the city council is saying. That's what the mayors are saying.
Okay, but the police budget is still the same. The reason why cops are leaving could be a number of different issues, but the police budget is still the same. They're still
I'm not
funding.
making the argument that, oh my God, we need to massively increase police budgets in America.
Okay. No.
I'm just saying that there is a couple of issues here where we have to be careful.
Okay.
We still need policing. And we still need at least a bare minimum amount of policing, and we need them to do their jobs.
Okay.
And those communities are crying out to us.
So you and I,
and
but you said they defunded
they're
DC.
They're not saying reduce police budgets. They're not saying reduce the number of police. They're saying the exact opposite. Those are African Americans in those cities saying, please get us help. We think the help is in the form of the police. Now, I think that it's even a little bit more complicated than what they're saying, right? And I think part of it is the cops are driving people crazy by not doing their jobs. But if you think that all those folks are wrong, that crime is not going up in D.C. and crime is not going up in Oakland, and they're just those communities are imagining it, I think you're wrong.
That's not what's happening. I'm literally letting you lead the conversation. You bring up examples. We address them piece by piece. We find out that that is not exactly what's happening. You move the needle away from police budgets to, because you said DC defunded its police. We found out that that's not the case. Then you turn around and say,
you go back and roll the tape. I say they move the money around, and it's complicated because sometimes it was just transferring from one department to another. I literally said that at the very beginning.
But then you dovetail that into police are leaving in droves as though these are.
I said there's less police.
Okay, as though there's less police because they all fucking refused to get vaccinated and quit, or fucking died of COVID. Okay, that's
those
it.
Those are factors.
Yeah, no, those are the major factors. That's the actual only factor. You understand that, right? They were dying.
Do you want more police in DC?
These fucking fat sacks of shit were dying so much that the departments were like, dog, you gotta get vaccinated. And then they turned around and were like, fuck no, I'm not getting vaccinated. I was slated to retire anyway, so I'm gonna fucking retire now, but without getting fucking vaccinated, and I'm gonna make a TikTok video about it because I'm a giant fucking pussy. That's what the fuck happened, okay?
That's not the only thing that
happened. Is the major component. What are the other reasons why they're leaving? Because they can't fucking kill black people?
So
is that why they're leaving?
Hold on. I think that there should now be more cops in D.C. as the community is asking for, and now as progressive legislators in D.C. are asking for? Or do you say, no, we shouldn't give them more cops?
I don't know what the fucking people in D.C. are asking for, but given your track record so far, if I were to look at the actual fucking thing that people are asking for in D.C., I'm sure that there's a difference in opinion with what you're stating and what the reality is there as well.
Okay.
At this point, it's like I can't help but feel like you are a little bit more motivated by your own personal opinion on the matter, and you're just looking for things that correspond to your personal biases on the issue due to your own personal experience with crime running rampant in Los Angeles with police not doing anything, and instead of addressing it, and then saying it's all over the country over and over again. And of course, the media machine, which you have fought for 20 fucking years of your entire life for the past 20 years, or fought against, sorry. The media machine has now completely captured you. And instead of like, instead of like looking into it in the way that we just did on like 3 of the 4 points that you've brought up so far, and addressing the realities and how different it is from the way that you have covered it thus far, like, I feel like this is a moment
with all
for
those local communities.
This is a moment for self-examination. I think it's a good opportunity.
I'm with the voters of Ilhan Omar's district. I'm with the voters in Oakland.
Ilhan Omar still won, so clearly there was still a majority of people that agreed with her in that situation. So again, you keep saying like, oh, well, she almost lost. Oh, well, she almost lost. Yeah, the Democratic Party launched a fucking primary opponent against Ilhan Omar and funded and facilitated her. She's not the.
It didn't work.
She's not the reason.
In the case of Ilhan Omar, she specifically was in favor of a defund the police bill that affected that area. That's why it affected Ilhan more than it affected Rashida or AOC or Ayanna Pressley.
So are you talking about the Republican that she comes through, or are you talking about her primary opposition?
In the primary.
Okay, regardless of what you are stating, if there was such a reactionary attitude on the ground in terms of how much, because nobody fucking participates in the primaries, as you know, better than anybody else. That's why Bernie Sanders lost. and they are way more motivated by local media and the Democratic Party's apparatus to go out and vote, because these are like the fucking, these are the types of voters that are Democratic Party first voters. If that reactionary sentiment was all that important in Ilhan Omar's specific district, she wouldn't have fucking literally cumstered and dumpstered Cicely Davis. This would be a much closer race. But it turns out people actually weren't motivated by defund the police as much as you claim they were motivated by defund the police.
It's one of the bluest districts that a Republican has 0% chance of winning that race.
Well, there you go. And it's shown in the data.
But a conservative Democrat has no business winning and almost beat her. And you can look at the polling, 78% of African Americans were against defund the police bill that specifically affected them. You think that that's inconvenient for you because you think, no, they should be in favor of defund the police, but they're not. They're not. So
NBC Washington says the department has had fewer than 3,400 members since December, 430 fewer officers than we did in 2013. If everything has gone to shit due to the loss of 430 officers, clearly there's a bigger issue, says Axel DM. There's
431 cops in a particular area is a
wait,
lot.
No. There is a lot of. You said it wasn't COVID, right?
No. I said it's definitely partly COVID.
Let's look at Washington police. What fatality numbers? I want to see how much of that 430 is actually COVID resignations and COVID related deaths, right?
I think that's a big factor.
Washington line of duty deaths, officer down, memorial page, officer down. Let's take a look. Okay. Oh no, this is Washington State, I think. Oops. Washington DC police fatality numbers. Now, I don't know the exact numbers, but I do know trends. I do look at numbers quite frequently, and I do know trends. And if I know anything about trends, a major amount of the police that are no longer with us in service are most likely as a consequence of both COVID retirements and COVID-related line of duty deaths. So let's see. Washington VA is doing great. Let's see if I can find it right here. I'm looking for it. I mean, I don't know why they don't have an officer down page here on the Metropolitan Police Department.
It doesn't matter, Hus, because if you're
of course it matters.
If you're trying to prove that there's a great number of factors as to why there's less police in D.C., I agree. So there's nothing left to prove. I'm asking you, do you think we should have more cops in D.C.? And I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think we should. The community's asking for it.
I mean, I know that overall this is chat. I know that this is like the leading cause of deaths. I know that. That's why I'm specifically looking for Washington, D.C. I want to know what the numbers look like for Washington, D.C. in particular. Look at my messages is right there.
And by the way, a lot of the cops leave because they're whining that they don't get to beat up people anymore. I know that too.
Yeah,
that's definitely one of the factors as well.
So if a chunk of cops are leaving because they can't, do hate crimes willy-nilly, and another much larger chunk of cops are actually dying to COVID, and another also sizable number of chunk of cops are leaving due to retirement as a consequence of COVID and refusing to take the vaccine, okay? And all these resignations are occurring. Do you feel like this is a problem born out of defunding the police or any of the narratives that the media presents, any of the narratives that you've brought up, or do you think it's more so cops being giant fucking pussies and refusing to do their fucking jobs, which on both the resignation side is the case, and also on the enforcement side is the case?
I think that both are factors, as I've now said. I don't know how many times I can repeat it, and I think that in those communities think that less cops is an issue for them. I wish that weren't the case, but that is the case, and I think that they might be right. Now, I don't think cops are going to magically solve all the problems, but at the same time, I think we have to make people feel safe, and I think that we overstepped on some of the laws, as I've described before. We should reel that back in, but only reasonably. A tiny bit.
In the District of Columbia, 90% of line of duty deaths were COVID related.
I never disagreed, Haas.
I know, but you can't. Okay, if you jump to the conclusion, okay, and you let the implications do the work, and then we go back into the data and we piece by piece examine it and find out that like these are the reasons, then you have to understand that your argument falls apart.
No, it doesn't. So, okay, go ahead. Haas, look up Washington City Council. We're going to spend hours looking things up.
I mean, it's important. I think
Washington City Council, progressive, change of mind. I don't know how you want to Google, but council, progressive.
What?
Change stance. I don't change.
Oh, yeah, by the way, I do know this as well, for the record. The major reason why people are resigning is because the crisis is due to their feelings. According to the National Fraternal Order of Police, their feelings are hurt.
That's a big is. And
Wait,
I think
how do we fix that? How do we fix that their feelings?
No, we don't fix their feelings. What
do we do?
So if a cop says, "Hey, I'm going to quit because I can't beat up people anymore," I say, "Oh, thank you so much. Give me your badge and gun right away and get the fuck out." Okay. So, but I do need to hire a cop to replace him, Haas.
Yeah, and a major chunk of the funds are actually going to recruitment now, and even then, it is. So people are being recruited. They're just not recruited at levels.
Not recruited fast enough.
Do you think
it's an issue?
Do you think we should apologize to cops?
No.
Do you think that we should say when I see a cop, I hug and kiss him. I say, "Sir, please give me your service weapon. I want to polish it." That's what I say. I say, "Sir, I love you." I get on my hands and knees and I lick their boots, and I'm doing my part. You know what I mean? That's my job. I'm doing that specifically because I just don't want them to stop working on the force.
But Haas, we agree on this,
right? Okay. So if we agree that they're fucking giant pussies, okay, then why are we fucking talking about the defund the police optics? Why the fuck are we talking about woke DAs? Why the fuck are we talking about anything?
I never said woke DAs.
So it seems like we are in agreement that there is an issue with enforcement and police doing their fucking jobs and not being giant pussies, right? I think we agree on that.
That is one of the contributing factors.
But
it's not all police, but it is a lot of police, unfortunately.
So why are they?
And the good news is a lot of them quit. A lot of them quit because they were babies. The ones who quit, by definition, were babies. Okay, so I'm thrilled that they quit. But I need to replace them because people don't feel safe. So do you agree with that?
Do you think that? Sure. Do you think that?
Good.
No. Hold on.
We almost completely agree.
Where are the hurdles in that recruitment process? So do you think woke activists are stopping the recruitment process from happening? Is that what's going on?
No, but in D.C. they realized that they needed to unfortunately appropriate more money for the recruitment. So that's what they had to do. So that's part of an issue.
They had a lot of budgets that opened up for them when some of them died. So they didn't have to spend money on all of the improper use of violence charges that they have to pay out, things of that nature. So they are using those funds on recruitment because we just talked about, no defunding has occurred. So if there is a recruitment crisis in the country with respect to the police force, how do we solve it?
So first of all, if you're looking at overall ways to fix the system, the place that I would start with is police training. And I would explain to them that this rule that they have, that they all refer to, better to be judged by 12 than carried out by 6, is the world's worst rule. No, yes, the nature of this job is to take certain risks, and yes, sometimes with your health, safety, and maybe even your life, because your job is to protect the citizens. So no, do not shoot the citizens as your first option. That should be your last option. De-escalation should be much better taught, and I can go on and with the way the cops should be retrained. Once you've retrained the cops and you have appropriated money to mental health services that belong in mental health services and not going to cops, then at that point, I would want to pay the cops well. I would want that job to be a really valuable job.
Wait, do you think that they're not paying him well right now?
No, right now they pay him excellent, and so the fact that they
can't
get cops to sign up, I'm actually flabbergasted by. So you tell me what your answer is for getting more cops to sign up in D.C., North Carolina, and other places.
Do you think people hate
problem?
Do you think people hate cops and don't want to join the police force? Because the media keeps saying that they're bad, or do you think that they are actually bad and people understandably don't feel safe around them because
both.
the presence of police need to be? Wait, Both. What do you mean?
Yeah. So I think that
You think the media is contributing to the cops are bad narrative?
I think that when you say media, that then expands into include us that are online and all the videos that have been done that show the cop. Yeah.
Let me tell you, I've participated in that every goddamn day of my life, brother. I'm always talking about how bad cops are. Do you think that I've been able to move the needle in comparison to the multi-billion-dollar mainstream media operation that absolutely does not show that cops are bad? If anything, sometimes covers the horrific crimes that cops engage with.
So for
am I out here doing it?
All my life, mainstream media has covered for cops and told us that they're angels and saints and they'll never lie, etc. But since 2020, actually even earlier than that, it started with Trayvon Martin. And by the way, it started in a lot of ways with the Young Turks. And we were righteous in our anger, and we were right. And Benjamin Crump has been wonderful in giving us credit that we up the Trayvon Martin story, made it a national story, justice for African Americans in this country, justice for people who are being abused by police. Now, have we collectively in online media moved the needle by showing video after video after video? Yes, we have moved the needle. Should we have moved the needle? Yes. We've exposed the corruption that was within the police departments, the abuse that was happening, that needs to be addressed and began to be addressed. Now, did that affect people's view of police overall? Yes, I think it did affect people's views. Is that a bad thing? No, not necessarily. Cops should get their act straight and should stop abusing the shit out of people, right? And shooting people in the back when they're running away from you, the South Carolina case, and on and on and on that we exposed, right? So what we needed to do was to fix the problem. We began to fix the problem. Now, did that create some other issues that need to be addressed? Yes. So is it that cops, people don't want to sign up to be cops partly because they have seen cops do bad things in their lives, so they don't want to be part of the bad guys? Yes. Another factor that they've seen the videos, and well, it looks like cops are the bad guys, and I don't want to join the bad guys. Yes. Is the answer to that, well, okay, then you should do propaganda videos like mainstream media where we tell you the cops are awesome and the greatest thing ever? No, it doesn't mean that. It means that cops should fix their act, okay? And mayors and local districts should insist that police do community policing, serve the community, not only serve the rich, and not only get their jollies by beating people up, etc., not abuse the system. And yes, we compensate you really well, so you take risks and you serve the community. If you don't do that, we're going to fire you, but we're going to keep recruiting because we need cops, but we need them to act right. And that is a balanced approach and the correct approach.
Can I ask you something?
And by the way, if we said that, the whole country would agree with us, and the whole country would elect progressives nonstop.
So, we were talking about DC before, and they have a recruitment problem, right? The one I showed you that the Fraternal Order of Police said, like, nobody wants to be a cop anymore. Nobody wants to work anymore, right? One other thing that it says here, at least according to W Top News, is that DC's police chief says recruiting officers is harder due to new laws. One of those laws is that discipline taken against officers in DC is made public, which is actually hurting their image.
No, don't care. No,
so,
of course it should be made public.
So it seems like you understand the fundamental problems with policing in the country. It seems like you understand that cops are being giant pussies. It seems like you understand all of that, but then you still say that like there's a mismatch of it, just like there's an issue here that I do not understand because if we're in agreement that cops are being pussies and a major part of the reason why they can't recruit people is because everybody fucking hates them because they've done a horrifyingly bad job so far, then the overall problem is in the hands of the police, and they should fucking have legislators fix their image by fixing the structure in and of itself. This would require legislative reform. Okay?
I mean,
so why are you?
I don't think it's the sole factor, but I agree with that.
So you don't think that like defunding the police is an issue then?
No, I'm saying that there are How many times can I say it?
I mean, but
there's a bunch of factors, and in some places, unfortunately, in D.C., they need more money to hire more cops.
That's not what they're saying. They're not saying that.
They need more money to hire more cops. People are saying, God damn it, get us more cops.
Okay.
So
no, people are saying get us more cops, and the D.C. police chief is saying we can't get more cops because we give them more money. We're spending more money on recruitment, and they don't want to join because they fucking hate the police. So it's a crisis of identity, not one born out of the supposed made-up problem of defunding the police. We've demonstrated here in the past hour.
Defunding the police? Do you want to so you're saying we didn't really do it?
We did not do it.
I showed you a couple of instances where it happened.
No, you didn't.
Okay.
No, you did not. But you did not.
They tried for a law in Minnesota.
Okay, we're now moving to Minnesota.
In DC. Okay, but forget it.
No. This
so
is
my question to you is, do you want to defund the police? Do you say, okay, fuck it, less police. I don't give a goddamn what the people of Washington wants. I don't give a goddamn what the people of Oakland want. Less police because I have this agenda and I'm going to have less police and I don't care if they're unsafe. Besides which, there's no crime problem anyway. So you want to like now you're forcing me into exaggerations. Right, because you won't let it go. So, do you want to defund the police?
The only thing I haven't let go is basically looking at the information that you've provided as a way to solidify your argument.
Defund the police?
And you're getting mad at me.
Do you want to defund the police? No, I'm asking you a super simple question. Do you want to defund the police?
I think police budgets are massively inflated. I think that yes, we absolutely could use a little bit of that PricewaterhouseCoopers style elimination of redundancy in American policing, okay? And get those fucking bad actors out of there, which some of them have already self-selected, it seems, okay? And put in even more restrictions to ensure that they can't fucking go balls to the wall, gung-ho. I got my gun to my side. I'm going to fucking use it whenever the fuck I can. And we should train them on de-escalation, not escalation. And the funds that we take away from the police, which in almost every single fucking city is more than 50% of the local budget going directly to the police department, we should spend on public education, after-school programs, and issues that actually solve the reasons why crime happens to begin with. There are places like in the Midwest where car theft is a massive problem. You got the Kia boys, right? These are like 12-year-olds, okay? And they're boosting Kias left and fucking right. These kids are fucking brilliant, okay? They're smart as shit. They know how to fucking boost a car. Instead of fucking joyriding, they could be using their ingenuity in some kind of in some other direction that is infinitely more positive, and yet there is no funding on measures like that because our entire criminal justice system is focused on enforcement regardless of the results. There is no other system in any other country where something is so consistently fucking bad, and yet we just keep throwing more money at the problem, hoping that it will like magically perish, when history has shown time and time again that we are not solving these issues whatsoever. Now, you also utilize the NAACP as an example, which I think is quite funny considering who you are and how progressive you are, when you know that the NAACP is an insanely conservative institution within the Democratic Party, but you wanted to make an argument for funding the police more, so you utilize the NAACP as a talking point, like, oh, black people want more police in these areas. The NAACP,
but they do. The polling indicates they do.
Yeah. The NAACP in and of itself also said Bernie Sanders hates black people. And the NAACP even promoted Hillary Clinton over Barack Obama. To utilize the NAACP in any situation whatsoever is perhaps an argument that I would have only expected from the likes of Ben Shapiro, not from someone who has duked it out with other like incredibly rigid
How about the polling,
institutionalists.
You reject every argument. How about the polling showing that black people don't want to defund the police?
Okay.
So you're forcing it down their throats, saying,
I'm
no,
not.
black people, you don't understand the situation at all. You're imagining stuff. There is no actual crime. I want to cut police in your area. Even though you want more police, I'm going to give you less police because I'm a progressive here to help you. That ruins the progressive brand.
I did not say that at all.
So, Haas, listen, man. If you say give general extra money to cops, I say no. But if you say, hey, these areas are saying they need to hire more police officers and their community is demanding it, I'm going to give them the money to hire those specific police officers. But I want massive reform of the police. I want massive reform of our prison system. And so we can do both of those things. They're not mutually exclusive. But if you go around taking away cops from the streets and crime rises, they're never going to elect progressives, and they don't feel safe. And it's not just a matter of politics. It's also a matter of policy. But if you turn to politics, it is awful politics. Awful to go to say to communities, you're wrong, we don't believe you, just take the crime and deal with it. You're imagining it, and we're going to take away more cops from you. And if you feel unsafe, you will lose every goddamn election.
Okay. So as far as speaking for black people in underfunded neighborhoods, I never, said any of those things. And I feel like it's not a great way to have a charitable discussion with your nephew.
I hear you, brother, but now I quote the Oakland NAACP because they're actually concerned, and you say any quoting of the NAACP is a conservative position that agrees with Ben Shapiro. So we're both doing it.
I know. Saying that black people want more police presence in their neighborhoods is an infinitely more nuanced conversation than simply stating it as such as a talking point in this situation. Yes, black people want police to actually work in their neighborhoods. That's why simultaneously totally there is two different schools of thought that actually align on the same agenda. Okay, on the one hand, black people say police keep fucking killing them, and their presence is seen as not helpful, but instead terrifying. But black people also say we want 911 to have faster response times in black neighborhoods. These two factors still align with what I'm saying. I'm not saying we don't need any police whatsoever. I'm saying we need legislative enforcement to ensure that policing has a level of accountability in this country so they are, by design, doing what they're supposed to do, not be an occupying force in black neighborhoods, but instead a force that actually shows that there is some law and order in their immediate vicinity. Police, as it stands currently, is a presence of lawlessness and disorder in black neighborhoods. Okay? It's about looking at a situation, analyzing the intricacies, and finding out what the root cause or what the actual problem is. Looking at it with black and you said nuance. I'm giving you nuance.
No. That what you just said right there, I agree with like 98% of it.
Okay,
so
great.
Can we end on agreement? Because we've done it for over 2 hours now.
But the problem is you made this argument with like 11 different talking points that we had to go through piece by piece and examine and find out is not necessarily the way that you have presented it. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up, and I think it's important, is specifically because this is dangerous thinking. Because once you are this impassioned about a particular subject, you start seeing information, especially in a mainstream media that is motivated by corporate goals, that correspond to your biases, and sometimes you don't examine them deeply. And that is a problem, and it's an infinitely larger problem when you are a 30-year progressive political commentator. That is an issue that I do have. I don't think, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think you're looking at this stuff objectively because you see crime or you see manifestations of crime, and I think that is causing you to grab on to whatever right-wing framing that...
It's not right-wing framing. I mean, how much more nuanced could I have been? 2 hours and 15 minutes of fucking nuance, and you call it right-wing framing.
Because when we look at the nuance,
all right, then I'll do likewise. Okay, you think crime's no big fucking deal. Hey, go people of LA, fuck off and deal with it on your own. I'm not going to give you any cops. I'm not going to give you anything, and I'm going to say, oh, progressives are always right. Just decriminalize everything and crime for everyone. Okay, we can both do exaggerations. We could both do it.
I don't think that I.
So, like you're saying, it's all anecdotal. We've gone through how many stats? How many times have I shown national crime numbers have gone up and you've agreed? Okay, so we've gone over it and over it and over it. Huss, you're saying to the people of these communities that they're imagining it. They are not fucking imagining it. They're not imagining it.
We're going back to the same issue that we had in the beginning of the conversation when we were talking about two ways of looking at the same data point. You can look at overall shrink without knowing what contributes to that, okay? Like the National Retail Association reveals shrink numbers year over year. Local media will look at that and go, $112 billion worth of merchandise have been stolen, and they will interlace that into footage.
I'm not local media. I give proper context.
Hold on. They will interlace that with footage of like black teenagers stealing Gucci purses or whatever the fuck to drive home a narrative, right? But when you look at the actual data in and of itself, you realize that the reality is not that like retail theft has gotten completely out of control. As a matter of fact, it's only increased by around 1%. Overall shrink is increased by around 1%. And that is completely an understandable increase that is adjusted with overall retail increasing, not just crime, but retail increasing. So when you see that, there's two ways to look at that. There's two ways to analyze that data. $112 billion, that's crazy. I already have seen the anecdotal, the emotional anecdotes that the media is showing me, and I see the $112 billion number, and I go, wow, that's fucking nuts. Okay, I start developing this idea that it is like rampant and out of control. So what do I do in that situation? I show you the actual information in the way that it's supposed to be presented in an objective manner, okay? That is not me saying that you're doing this deliberately or by design. I'm saying that it would require a little bit additional, I think it would behoove you to look into it a little bit further when you see something about crime running rampant, instead of immediately going along and saying, no, I already feel this way. This information is presented to me and such, so I'm just going to go along with it and say it is run rampant. That's it. That's all I'm stating.
I'm going to take your advice from earlier and say, hey, we disagree a little bit. God bless.
All right. Well, is there anything else we want to talk about? I'm sorry. We spoke for 2 hours and 17 minutes. Sometimes
about
in circles.
Just about crime, let alone the earlier part.
Yeah.
So. Brother, you're going to ask me if I'm running for president.
Oh, yeah, you're running for president. So what's going on? What's your goal here? Why are you running for president?
Okay. First of all, it's not official. I've got to get a staff together, a bunch of challenges, a number of challenges. And so when it's 100% for sure, obviously I'll let you guys know it's 100%. But the reason why I'm very seriously considering it, leaning in that direction, is because I think there's about a 90% chance that Joe Biden's going to lose. Point one is, unlike Democrats in D.C., I actually think democracy's on the line. I actually think Trump is a fascist. And I think that the country's going to have a very tough time recovering if Trump wins the election again. But the Democrats say, yes, well, on the other hand, we have to bow down to authority. And Joe Biden is the authority figure, so we must all obey him. If it means we lose our democracy, well, at least we weren't impolite to Joe Biden and Democratic leaders.
So I agree with you. I think that Democrats have portrayed every single election as the most important election of our lifetimes, and in some respects, it is true. However, I do think that if that was the case, then the Democratic Party, or if they actually believed it, they wouldn't put up Joe Biden. They would not have put up Joe Biden last time around, especially when the deck of talent was significantly wider. Of course, you had Bernie Sanders, but even on the neoliberal side, even on the corporate Democrat side, you had way more talent, at least younger talent, that could have absolutely defeated Donald Trump. So now Joe's chances of losing are even larger, despite the fact that if it was, and I do firmly believe this, if it was anyone else, if it was like the same policies that Joe Biden has implemented, some of which I do agree with. I think like the federal agencies have done a pretty good job, NLRB specifically. But if he was a younger guy, if he was a more, if he was the old retail politician Joe, he would be winning by Reagan margins.
Yeah,
I think.
So,
but he's not.
Yeah. So first off, on the most important election stuff, I'm on the record. I mean, and I've been doing this a long time. 1996, Bill Clinton versus Bob Dole. And everybody, every election, they say it's the most important election. And I said, no, this is the least important election of our lifetimes. Clinton and Dole's policies are nearly indistinguishable. And in 2012, and this will make some heads explode, Mitt Romney versus Barack Obama, a very unimportant election. So Barack Obama winning the first time around, very important. Second time around, sure, I voted for Obama. Of course, Obama is better than Romney. But, I mean, Obamacare was previously called Romney Care. Literally the same policy, right? They're both, one's a corporate Democrat, the other one's a corporate Republican. Yeah, there's issues around the margins, but overall, not earth-shattering. Mitt Romney would have done things that were very similar to Barack Obama, right? So now, this is earth-shattering. Donald Trump tried a coup. He has a fake elector scheme, and he wanted to, we start the riot, we delay the vote, and then we kick it back to the states. The state Republican legislators install the fake electors. The House votes for Trump, complete the coup. I'm not letting that frickin' fascist back into office. He's never going to let go. He doesn't believe in democracy. He doesn't believe in America. Democrats think, generally speaking, Democratic Party leadership thinks, yeah, but Bernie Sanders is worse because we're all corrupt and we all want to make tons and tons of money. At least Donald Trump still is corrupt, just like us, and he'll lower corporate taxes. All of us, our lobbyists will, party in the streets, etc. So they're not taking it seriously when they need to take it fucking seriously. Things are going to change drastically in this country if Trump wins. Is Biden going to lose? Well, when Biden won in 2020, won by only 44,000 votes in the Electoral College in 3 swing states. So razor-thin margin. At that time, he was polling at 52%. Right now, he's polling at 39%. That is 13 points lower. Why in the world would we go into an election with a guy polling 13 points lower than when he barely beat Trump in the first place? And now the Democrats have to win by 5, the popular vote, to win the Electoral College. Joe Biden won by 4.5. Barely squeaked by. You got to get to 5 to be even close to comfortable, right?
Yeah.
Joe Biden now losing by 1.2 points in the average of the polls, okay? So that means he's down by at least 6 to Donald Trump. No one should be down to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is incredibly unpopular. 55% of the country despises Donald Trump. And if you're losing to Donald Trump, you suck at politics. I don't mean the Republicans. I get it. In a Republican primary, he's very popular. But in a general election, a Democrat should be mauling Donald Trump. But they do suck.
I agree.
So now, my thing...
So what is your impact going to be?
So my impact is, for God's sake, get Biden out of the goddamn race. So there's a couple of different scenarios here. Number one, if somehow I get to 20, and remember, RFK Jr. got to near 20, okay? So it's not at all
16.
impossible.
Which is crazy.
Right.
RFK Jr. is currently in the teens. Well, the speculation at the moment is that he will take more away from Donald Trump than he will from
He's going independent, so he's not
Joe
in the
Biden.
Democratic Party anymore, so he's gone.
But
so
but as an independent, he will play the role of a spoiler, not for the Democratic Party, but instead for the Republican Party is the speculation at the moment.
Yeah, I'm with you, but that's not relevant to the Democratic primaries, my point.
So how are you going to get into the primaries?
So if I get into the primaries and I get to about 20 points, everyone will panic. You recognize that? If I get to 25, it'll be a 5-alarm fire in DC.
Okay, but how do you get into the primaries to begin with?
Run. So I'm doing background work. You get on the ballots. So is it easy to get on the ballots? Well, actually, for 48 out of the 50 states, it's not overwhelming. You collect signatures. We have a lot of passion. Collecting signatures shouldn't be that big a deal. Money, we're going to be able to raise a decent amount of money is my guess. So there are several different obstacles in my path for sure. It is nowhere near easy. It'll be incredibly difficult. But if the polling shows we want someone else, then Whitmer, Newsom, Pritzker, Shapiro, all those governors will come rushing in, okay? Now, if I beat those governors, fantastic. But the point is, it can't be Biden because Biden is almost certainly going to lose. And we can't lose this election. And Haas, they're not going to run because they bowed their heads to Joe Biden and the Democratic Party leadership. They think it's heresy to run against them. I'm saying it's heresy not to run. So why am I running instead of someone else? Because I literally tried to get every other person in the race. I asked all the progressives to run, they wouldn't run. I asked all the Democratic governors to run, they wouldn't run. So somebody's got to do something because we're going to hit that iceberg. So if we're going to hit the iceberg, okay, I will get so much abuse for running, it will be legendary, right? All the media will hate me or ignore me, right? And there'll be nothing but abuse. But I'm not just going to go quietly into that good night. So if no one else is running and nobody wants Joe Biden, I'm going to run and I'm going to force the issue.
So, best case scenario is you run and then the media hates you, which they will do that. You did it in fucking the California jungle primary, or not jungle primary, the jungle special election. And that's when New York Times said you agree with David Duke and are a supporter of bestiality. So that's the best case scenario, is that the New York Times calls you a supporter of bestiality. The worst case scenario is that they just don't talk about you, and then you have the same approval rating or the same polling results as Marianne Williamson.
So, Haas, what you're pointing out is the number one problem that progressives have, which is mainstream media hates us. And they have a massive corporate bias, status quo bias, and then they call, oh, that's objective position. The objective position is to be in favor of corporate rule. And so all the progressives are radicals and in favor of bestiality and whatever else that they're making up. And then what the New York Times did in that congressional race, let alone CNN, LA Times, etc., was basically mask off moment for them, where they're like, we're just going to make things up. We're just going to lie about this guy. Period. No subtlety, no nuance. Just going to lie after lie. So I'm perfectly aware of those things. But Haas, dynamic has changed to some degree. So for my book, before the presidential thing came out, I've already been on 20 shows or so, right? Those 20 shows didn't even exist 4 years ago, definitely 8 years ago, right? So now there's a whole different ecosystem where you can get your message out. Can you get your message out enough to get name recognition in 4 months to be able to beat Joe Biden? Not necessarily. It's a fighter's chance. And the only thing we have left is a fighter's chance. So I will go on every show, no matter if the right wing, left wing, they disagree with me, they agree with me. I don't care. I'll go and I'll make the case. Look, the Democrats never deliver for you. And this, for sure, if I win, I'm going to do everything in the world to make sure we pass those progressive laws. And nothing's going to stand in my way, and I will break anything in my path to make sure that I do that. And everybody who knows me, whether they like me or they dislike me, they know I'm not full of shit, right? They know that I'm a fighter, and I'm going to go fight for those things. Like here, I'll give you the example I always give. Paid family leave, polls at 84%. Why isn't Joe Biden fighting for it? Why isn't any Democrat fighting for it? It polls at 74% among Republicans. The whole country wants paid family leave, and not a single goddamn politician will do it. So there is some chance that when I scream from the rooftops, and I'm good at that for God's sake, give moms 12 weeks off but after they have a baby, that the whole country is going to say, oh, finally, there's another option. It's an incredible long shot, Haas. Everybody knows that, right? I'm going to give them an option because no one else will. And by the way, every politician on the Democratic side who didn't run should be deeply embarrassed that they bowed their heads to a wounded antelope because they now think the Democratic Party is about authoritarian rule. I don't agree. I don't obey. And I'm going to go in. If I go in, and I'm going to fight like hell.
I just realized the worst double whammy is the worst case scenario is that you get like 10% and no one joins the race. And then Biden inevitably loses, not because of you, but because he's Biden and old. And then the media will Jill Stein you permanently, despite the fact that your impact was not even marginal in that situation.
No, of course. Yeah, that's it. The minute, look, why is everybody scared to run? Because the goons in mainstream media will blame you for the loss when it was their candidate who lost. I've already lived this. They did it with Hillary Clinton. So Hillary Clinton was an awful candidate. People don't want the establishment. They try to force the establishment down people's throats. And then when Bernie ran to give them an alternative, and he would have won, and the polling indicates that very clearly, they said, oh, it was Bernie's fault. It wasn't our beloved Hillary Clinton. She was spotless. It was the Russians. It was Bernie. So is the mainstream media going to do that? Of course they are. They can come kiss my ass. So, and I'm going to fight them now. I'm going to fight them again, and we're going to win because they're going to capsize, and we get larger every single day. So if I'm worried about what the mainstream media is going to say, of course I'd never run. Nobody would ever run, and that's why nobody else is running. Well, you know what? Rest of the Democrats, either gather up some fucking balls and get in the race or get out of my way.
All right. Well, good luck to you on that endeavor. Godspeed, brother. Goddamn
right. So if I finish up and I get the staff and I go in, come back, I'll tell you the website, and then let's see what we can do. And by the way, and people might say, hey, you know what, Cenk? We don't believe you. We think Biden's going to win. We think Biden's lovely. So when you run, we're not going to give you any money. We're not going to support you. We're not going to volunteer for you. No, Biden. Okay, that's what they wanted. There's nothing I could do about that. Okay, but my guess is a lot of people will go, well, at least the brother's trying, right? And so
no, they won't. They won't. People are cynical. They're not. No, people are cynical. They're motivated by propaganda. Anyway, we'll see what happens. But like I said, last time you did this in California,
I know what the difference is.
What?
So in California, I got annihilated, right? So
yeah, you got 5-6%.
Yeah, well, I got no plea. By the time they got to 76% of the vote counted, they still haven't finished counting. I got all the way up to 6.6%.
Yeah, you got 6.6%.
So I got annihilated, right? So why? Oh, you ran for a lower seat and did worse. Why in the world would you do better in the presidential race? There's a very clear reason why. Because almost all of it, and this is what I learned from that race, that actually even having more money doesn't make a difference. More ads doesn't make a difference. There's a lot of things that don't make a difference. Only one thing that drives elections, and that's media. If you're running a local congressional race, corporate media will bury you. They'll write smear articles about you and never give the mic back to you. Then you have no chance of ever reaching the voters.
So how are
you're done.
How are you going to stop that?
But in national politics, in a presidential run, there's tons of media. Yeah, the media might be negative. Yes, the mainstream media might ignore you in the beginning, but there's tons of inevitable media that is going to want to know about that race.
If that was the case, then Marianne Williamson would be trailing right now.
So I love Marianne Williamson. I give her all the credit in the world. Her policies are infinitely better than Biden's, and I think she has a better chance of winning than Biden. Go ahead and have your head explode if you think that's the wrong statement. God bless, okay? And it's not Marianne's fault. We just have different personalities. I'm a steamroller. I'm an endless fighter, right? So Marianne makes her points in perfectly cogent, wonderful, pleasant ways. And it sucks that it doesn't break through, but unfortunately it doesn't break through. And I can't express how much respect I have for Marianne Williamson, who had the courage to do it from day one. So at the end of the day, people go, hey, you know what, Cenk, you screamed from the rooftops, but then I found out Marianne, and she's better than you. Hey, great, wonderful. Anybody but Biden so we could win the freaking election.
All right.
Okay.
How are you going to get over the natural-born citizen issue?
Okay. By the way, that's the second reason why I'm running. The Biden issue and the winning this election, by far the most important. But guys, this bullshit that you guys have heard your whole lives, and I've heard it 2,000 times because I'm a naturalized citizen, that you have to be a natural-born citizen to run is just not true.
George Romney did it.
Yeah.
He ran for president. For those of you who don't know, he was born in Mexico.
Yep.
Because his family wanted to do polygamy.
Yeah.
So they moved to Mexico. Sorry, go ahead.
There's a bunch of things. John McCain was born in Panama. Ted Cruz was born in Canada.
No, those are different because those
are different.
Yeah,
those are different.
Those are service members, born on bases, stuff like that.
Yeah, Ted Cruz actually is not different, but that's a whole different story. Okay. But the bottom line is, Constitution, the part that we all learned in 8th grade civics class, oh, here's the requirements for being president. You got to be above a certain age.
You forgot.
You have to be born in America.
You forgot one person, Barack Obama. He was born in Kenya.
Okay. So, in case you don't know, kidding. Okay. So, but what they don't tell you is that the Fifth Amendment amended that part. Now, is that my opinion? No. Definitive Law Review articles, University of Illinois, Chicago, explains there is no question that Fifth Amendment, 14th Amendment jurisprudence shows that it amended the earlier part of the Constitution, and naturalized citizens have 100% same rights as natural-born citizens. And there's a very specific case, Schneider versus Rusk. It is definitive. It says the Fifth Amendment amended the earlier part of the Constitution, and naturalized citizens cannot be discriminated against in any way, shape, or form and have the same exact rights. So you know how many naturalized citizens there are in this country? 25 million of them. It is a civil rights issue. So you're saying to 25 million Americans, you're not really American enough. You're not allowed to run for president. That's just not true. So all I do is I run, and we definitively settle this, and 25 million Americans are liberated in a sense and become 100% American, which they clearly are, then that's a giant win.
I'm not kidding when I say I feel like you get more media clout if you said Obama was a naturalized citizen born in Kenya. The media would definitely pay attention to you then.
I know, but I'm not going to say things that aren't true.
What's his middle name? Hussein. I rest my case.
Said Hasan.
What?
Said
I
Hasan.
don't know what you're talking about. Who's that guy?
Look, first of all, you know the natural born citizen stuff is garbage on an issue in terms of morality, in terms of right.
No, I agree with you. I mean, yeah, if we're being serious, yes, I agree. I think that naturalized citizens should be able to run for president. I do. It's just that America is a reactionary white supremacist nation built on those fundamentals.
Elected Barack Hussein Obama and had him at an 83% approval.
Yeah, that was Barack Hussein Obama, who was incredibly charismatic and ran against a historically, notoriously bad candidate who was so bad that America, or at least the Democratic Party, almost elected a socialist in 2016. But, you know, there's differences there. But, yeah, okay.
Yeah, Barack Obama was incredibly charismatic. God bless. But what that showed was, 83% of the country is cool with a guy named Barack Hussein Obama, biracial, and you know, an African American. So people ignore that, but that's reality. So
you know what people do ignore? The Duluth Dyson, Larry Sinclair, just sucking Barack Obama's dick.
What am I gonna do with this guy?
I'm just saying, dude. That's who the people are actually ignoring. The truth about the matter.
All right.
In Gurney, Illinois, on that one fateful afternoon, Larold Sinclair, a man of many names. Okay, I'm done. Sorry, go on.
No. Republicans make up crazy shit all the time. In my case, good news for them. They don't have to make it up. Here, I was not born in the country. Look up Schneider v. Rusk. Look up the law review articles. There's no question we can definitely run for president. So if all I do is break that mythology, and 25 million people don't hear 2,000 times over in their lives, hey, you can't run for president, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll have done some service to the country.
I'm so cooked. Anyway, whatever. We'll see. There's gonna be fucking Oppo research if you do actually reach like critical mass and legitimately constitute a threat to Brandon. Oh my God, it's gonna be fucking unbearable. But it'll be fine, I think.
No, it'll be unbearable, and everybody knows that. Look, normal corporate politicians run. I'm serving the country. No, you're not. You're serving yourself. Get rich and famous, and you want to have power and status, right? In my case, everybody knows I'm going to get nuked. Media and the Democratic Party, let alone the Republican Party.
Not just you, your family as well.
Yeah, and that's why good people don't run, because the bad guys say, we're going to nuke you, we're going to be super unfair. I mean, last time you mentioned a bunch of examples of the New York Times, and they had to admit that they lied about David Duke, and that I actually kicked his ass in that interview and called him an anti-Semite bigot, and they were goddamn liars pretending that I agreed with him when it was the exact opposite. But another part of that story was they called me anti-Muslim and never clarified that I'm born Muslim. My background's Muslim. I'm an atheist now. But you don't think that's a relevant fact? So yeah, will the New York Times lie about me? Of course they're going to lie about me. Will CNN lie? Of course. MSNBC will be by far my biggest opponent, right? And I welcome that fight. I welcome their hatred. And I'm going to fight for people, and that's who I am. And so, it is what it is. And I'm not going to stop. So, look, man, you're a cynic, and so I know you don't love this kind of talk.
I don't.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't like that, I started Operation Hope at TYT. I believe in hope, and I believe in being relentless. You're going to get knocked down 2,000 times. The trick is get the fuck back up. When you get back up enough times, eventually you win.
All right. Good luck. Godspeed.
Godspeed, everybody. Let's do this. Cenk 2024.
All right, where can people find more information on your candidacy?
Well, right now we don't even have a website because it hasn't started yet. So not yet. So believe me, I hope you'll see in whenever we're done, a couple of days, a week, whatever it is, Cenk 2024 somewhere, right? And Cenk Uygur. I wish I had a site for you, but I don't have it yet.
Okay.
By the way, but the staff is half put together already. It's afoot.
All right, cool.
All right, brother. Thank you, man. Thanks for having me on. Good
Hopefully this was a
conversation.
productive conversation.
I think so. I think it'll
in some ways.
Yeah. All right, man. Thank you. I'll see you guys.
All right, I'm keeping this.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, you signed it? Go. Okay. I'm not sure it's going to be radical enough for you, but hope you enjoy it anyway. Thanks for your hard work, creativity, and passion at TYT. Damn, what about after TYT? You don't care about that?
Awesome after TYT, but it ain't got nothing to do with
it. Yeah. Oh, got it.
No, that's me thanking you for great work.
Thanks, man. I'm going to keep going. All right. Okay. We are going to go back to the news. You got to pull those two dials up, like the circles. Oh, there it is. Yeah. I mean, that's much more difficult than figuring out how to run for president.